What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Go On Fourth YouTube channel, and what should be the first podcast somewhere, Apple Podcast, Spotify, somewhere. If you're listening to this in podcast form, just know it's the first one. We are back, Amani and myself. We are back. We are talking about NFL football week 2. We are going to discuss every game, some in great detail, others in not so much detail. Kind of a weird week for me. I caught a good portion of the games, but not every second of every game like I'm used to. So it's gonna, I have a blind spot here or there. So if we miss something or if I miss something, then feel free to sound off, let me know. But I guess we just talk about Thursday first, and we move on through the days.
Yeah.
Okay. So Thursday was Chargers Chiefs.
Goodness, feels like a year ago.
Dude, it does. It feels like I'm trying to remember what happened in that game. I want to say Brandon Staley was really conservative at points in that game, if I remember right.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
kind of
yeah. A lot
weird.
of the fourth down
Mm.
decisions and whatnot. The Herbert pick six.
The Herbert pick six was bad. So it's kind of a weirdly conservative game, almost from both teams. Mahomes only had 235 yards passing. Less than 10 yards per completion, which I feel like hasn't happened for him in a long, long time. But the Chiefs got the job done. They won the game. Herbert threw the game away. I don't really know what to say. Mike Williams went crazy. So if you played him in fantasy, DFS
Yeah, so
QB,
like the
good job.
Chargers definitely dominated this game,
Yeah,
but just like you said, just for Herbert kind of throw away the fourth down decisions, really conservative. Didn't really put their foot on the Chiefs' neck. It really let them stay in the game because defensively they put together an absolute clinic to limit that offense. But it didn't really matter when Joe Lombardi and that very vaunted downfield passing attack. I say that in very sarcastically, as Justin Herbert averaged 5 yards, a dot, which is
yeah.
embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, just not aggressive enough. And if you let the Chiefs hang around, give them points, give them a free 100-yard pick six, they're going to beat you, especially at home.
Yeah, I mean, just ask the Buffalo Bills. You have a big, strong quarterback that can throw the ball 70 yards. The easiest way to get him going and make sure that he's living up to his full potential is limiting his A dot for sure.
Yeah,
Herbert threw the ball 50 times, and we were talking about kind of a conservative game plan. It wasn't necessarily a conservative game plan in terms of their uh, play
yeah,
calling being run pass oriented. It was more just like they threw it a lot, but it's like they didn't really test them deep. I mean, they had some long receptions here 39, 26, 35. I mean, they're not super
yeah.
long,
A
but
lot of those
not
were
bad.
kind
They
of
were yak.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Some of those were yak, and then there was a couple in that last drive, and they're down 10, kind of garbage time.
Yeah. And I think, fantasy football wise, we don't really, we got other videos coming out about that. But three players with 10 targets on the Chargers is pretty interesting to me. Eckler kind of saved you with the 9 catches for 55 if you're in a PPR league or if you're playing DraftKings. On the other side of the ball, or on the other side of the sideline, I guess, the other sideline, man, the Chiefs, their offense it feels so good sometimes, and then other times it just feels really, really lost. And I don't hate to say without Tyreek because I don't think it's necessarily that as much as it is just like they don't really have anybody that stepped up to be a playmaker, and it's not that they need somebody that with 4.2 speed to do it. Like anybody really could step up in that offense, but it just doesn't feel like anybody's taken that by the reins so far.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. I mean, Travis Kelsey having 7 total targets just seems like a a miss there for
Yeah, well, he has the same amount of
Kansas City.
targets as MVS, so
Yeah, it's
yeah,
just ridiculous. And then they weren't just double bracketing him the whole game either. So
yeah,
a lot of that, and we said while watching the game, some of those play calls and game planning that went into this it was really questionable. And we didn't even mention it. Mahomes should have thrown. I forgot. Should have thrown
three
like 4 or
picks at
5.
least. Yeah, at least three minimum. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so they were very confused, and obviously they were a little worried about that pass rush, Bosa and Khalil Mack. So maybe a little more conservative than we kind of used to seeing the Chiefs. Not really attacking downfield, just trying to get the ball quick. But
Yeah,
going forward, we'll
I
see.
think it takes a special type of game plan for both teams to make two really good quarterbacks look mediocre. And like unenjoyable to watch. So I remember us walking away from that game just feeling like we did not enjoy watching that football game.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
it was an interesting game in terms of the result and in terms of how we got there, but the meat of the game, just in its entirety, just watching it, it felt like a slog to get through it. If I'm honest, again, I mean, it was just kind of a snooze fest. To me, when you got no receivers, when you've got no like star players, I don't know if I agree with the whole let Pat play point guard and just get it to everybody. Justin Watson, Noah Gray, Jerick McKinnon, Michael Burton. Like, I don't understand, because you signed Juju and you have Kelsey and, CEH out of the backfield. You still got Mecole, who you like. Like, I just feel like maybe it's feed those guys more than try to spread the ball around to less talented players. But I don't know, man. I think it'll be interesting to see how Kansas City continues to play. Obviously, they're 2-0, so they're fine. But it's just kind of not what we're used to seeing from them, I think.
Yeah, we have such high expectations for them. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So Thursday night in the books. Do we talk about Dolphins Ravens first? Why are they first on the list again? Let's talk about it. This probably be the longest discussion. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought the last Dolphins discussion was gonna be really long, and it wasn't too long. So, but we have some things to talk about here. So
Wow.
in the thumbnail it says, do we have the comeback of the year and the game of the year? I think we did, and I think they may have even been in two separate games. We'll get to that. This is a crazy comeback, obviously, for Miami. We were sitting in Discord watching it, and I was pretty adamant at halftime that this game was essentially over, because I didn't see how the defense could possibly stop them from scoring. Miami's defense played like shit. They played terrible. Let's keep it real, right? They were really bad on Sunday. They played better in the second half. But man, that defense was putrid. I mean, they were really bad. And Lamar took real advantage of it, especially early on.
Yeah, he sure did. I mean, giving up, like a 75-yard quick slant. Some easy, hitters. There's the, the 75-yard touchdown that he had where three guys go to the jet sweep and nobody accounts for Lamar. Just how does that even happen? And the kick return to the house. There was just a lot of sloppy, early plays for the Dolphins. And that's why they get down 28-7 and, have to dig their way out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, it just feels really. It worries me a little bit because I wonder if it's indicative of what kind of season defensively that they're going to have. I remember I wasn't super impressed with the defense against the Patriots, even though the Patriots' offense was not good. It didn't feel like Jalen Phillips has been a complete ghost so far this season, and he was a guy that stood out last year. We still have deficiencies at linebacker with Jerome Baker and Landon Roberts, who I'm not sold on either one of them, but I definitely think Landon Roberts is not a starting caliber linebacker, at least if you're trying to contend for the playoffs. There's a lot of deficiencies on that team, and I think Byron Jones coming back will help a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, they had to dig their way back, and we can talk about the Miami offense. Realistically, they moved the ball the whole game. It wasn't like, they just came to life in the second half. I mean, they were moving the ball well in the first quarter, or in the first half as well.
Yeah, they sure were. I mean, obviously the first drive, have the interception.
Yeah.
There were some stalled possessions down there, and then I think second half was there another interception where you moved the ball all the way down the field.
It was right before halftime where we were moving the ball down the field. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the complete game, the offense looked really good for the entirety of the game.
I thought so too.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, those Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on one field. I mean, we might be seeing the second incarnation of the greatest show on turf because goodness gracious.
Yeah, and it's kind of what everybody was expecting it to be, right? And I think after week one, people's expectations were tempered a little bit. They were thinking, well, maybe Tua does have limitations. Maybe this offense has limitations because of Tua. It did seem like a watered down version of the offense in week one. So when you get to this week, and I will say this, and I'll toot my own horn a little bit. I banged the drum this week that this was going to be a shootout. A lot of people thought it's going to be a close game. Maybe Ravens win it kind of 24-21. I kind of always had in my head this is going to be a shootout. At least in the first half, it didn't feel like that. It felt like it was a rout. But man, the second half. I mean, again, Tua Tagovailoa has been my favorite football player for like 8 years or so. I mean, give or take. He's again one of those guys that is a very polarizing figure in the NFL for really no reason. He just seems like a good dude and like played great football at Alabama. Had a catastrophic injury, came back from it. He feels like the type of guy that you would almost want to succeed, but people for some reason uh, don't have that affinity towards him. I guess it may just be where he was drafted or where he played college ball, but I mean, he finally showed up today, or I guess Sunday, and played like the guy I saw at Alabama. He finally looked the part of, okay, this is what we thought he was going to be when he got to the league.
Yeah, I mean he was excellent. Outside of I was like those two interceptions, he was excellent. I mean he was on time with the ball. He was accurate. He was quick with his reads. He would step up in the pocket and make something happen. I mean he had every phase of his game going, against the Ravens on Sunday, and he made them pay in every single way. And it was really beautiful to watch because as you alluded to, so many people like hate on him and throw a lot of ill will towards him. And I don't really don't understand why. He seems like I said, he seems like a very nice guy, like a very likable guy, and I feel like that's somebody that you want to root for, and he's very talented. I don't know if it's the lefty thing. Do people hate lefties in 2022? Is that it?
I don't know, man, and it could be just Bama fatigue, and it could be whatever because he did play at Bama and he won a championship with us, and it could be any of those numbers of things. But I mean, my whole thing with Tua is he does have limitations as a player. He's not a big quarterback, as was big news this week. Apparently, that he's not a tall quarterback and he can't see over his line. Uh, there's maybe four quarterbacks in the league that can see over their line right now. He's not one of them. That's fine. Um, you know, he does have limitations of his game. He doesn't have a 70-yard arm. He has maybe a 55-yard arm. But he showed that on Sunday it didn't really matter because and I thought that the ball that he was hit, that he underthrew to Tyreek for a touchdown, he just threw the ball late. Like Tyreek had those guys beat 10 yards and he just threw the ball a little bit late. So, and you'd rather him underthrow it there at the goal line than overthrow it, 10 yards out of the back of the end zone. So, again, I think he does have limitations, but watching him play, watching him maneuver the pocket is one of those skills that people say is elite from him. I don't know if I would using the term elite is kind of just not
I would
something
I
that
would
fit in
honestly
with
say
quarterbacks.
it is pretty elite. He buys himself a lot more time than I mean. We just watched Kirk Cousins tonight, and goodness gracious.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely does. He's got great movement. He's got great awareness in the pocket. It feels like a lot of the times he just knows what's going on. I mean, he was only sacked one time, and with an offensive line that's been much maligned and for good reason, to get sacked one time in a game with the Ravens front four as good as they are, their pass rush, and they brought heavy, they brought some pressure at times too. For him to be able to get rid of the ball as quickly as he did, maneuver the pocket, he made a crazy spin move to throw one of those touchdowns to River Craycraft that was absolutely absurd. Like you just don't see quarterbacks do that a lot. So those types of things about his game are really impressive and just make me feel like he can have longevity in the league as a starting quarterback. And you throw for 470 yards, six touchdowns. It's like like I said, in my wildest dreams of watching him play quarterback, did I ever think for the Dolphins that he would actually do that, especially after those first couple of seasons. But watching it, man, it really felt special. It was one of those moments where, as a fan of the team and as a fan of the player, you're just kind of sitting there with your mouth open. You just can't believe what you're watching.
Yeah, definitely. It felt good to see him succeed, and I've been waiting for him to do that. I mean, ever since that he came into the national championship in Alabama in the second half, I was super excited to see him. I was, like I said, big fan of him coming into Alabama, and it just felt really good. And also, I just want to give a lot of credit to Mike McDaniel. That offense
Oh,
is
for sure.
so perfectly designed. I mean, he gets his guys. I saw like a little play action slice that usually is ran by like a H back or a tight end off the ball. They ran it with Tyreek Hill, who was on the ball, and they move him around so many different ways and get him the ball in so many different avenues. It's hard to really sit there and kind of play, that little too high defense that they played the Chiefs last year to, avoid him from getting over top because he will get the ball underneath. And if you have those two guys back there, you got linebackers trying to tackle Tyreek underneath. It's a bunch of mismatches and coverage, and it is a beautiful offense to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think And I will say this too. I think it kind of almost speaks to what a defensive mind Bill Belichick is, by the way, because his defense is nowhere near as talented as Baltimore's defense, and it really felt like we have trouble moving the ball against the Patriots more than we did the Ravens. And I know that people will say the Ravens secondary was hurt. Marlon Humphrey played most of the game. Marcus Peters played the whole game. I mean, you can say that they did have backups in at the end, but I mean, when you've got I think they had to run. God, it was like 1,400 yards or 14,000 yards, something ridiculous on Sunday. Like when you make DBs who are already kind of injured run that many yards, they're gonna re-injure themselves, especially when it's like soft muscle injuries, hamstrings, groins. Like you can't run that much, chasing around Tyreek and Waddle. I mean, it's just not gonna work. And again, that's just a credit to McDaniel. It's a credit to everything that he's done. And we're just seeing the beginning of it, and that's what I think is the most encouraging. Is McDaniel's had this offense in for like a few months. It's not like he's been there for 3 years getting that offense run to perfection yet. So there's still, I think, areas to improve. The running game, in my opinion, was a little bit better. I think it's a little bit inflated because Chase Edmonds had a big run at the end of the game for 28 yards, which is a huge play. It was interesting to see Mostert, the bell cow, today. Or Sunday. But I mean, again, and I do want to also talk briefly, about Baltimore. I mean, their offense was very, very good. Obviously, I think that the Dolphins made it kind of easy on them. They really kept trying to show that zero blitz, and it was very obvious after maybe 2 or 3 drives that the Ravens just had that figured out from the jump, and it wasn't going to work this time, right? They game planned for it. They knew it was. They were ready for it. Lamar played about as perfect a game as you could have until, I mean, maybe the fourth quarter where he nearly threw a pick to Xavier Howard to lose the game. Like you said, a 79-yard touchdown run. I thought the Dolphins did a good job keeping him contained for the most part, aside from that long run. And then, making life easy for him, letting Mark Andrews kind of run up the seam open and just kind of get open in the middle of the field. I mean, I didn't love the defensive game plan from the Dolphins, but Lamar took advantage of it. He played a great game. If he can play like that all year, then Baltimore is probably going to have to pay him. I don't think they can really get away from it at this point. So, we'll see. And the Ravens, I think, have as good a chance as anybody to win that division. We'll talk about the Bengals soon, and that catastrophe. But Baltimore, I mean, I think they're as good a team as any in that division. And since the rapist doesn't come back until week 12, so Browns will probably be 5-6 or something like that. So Baltimore, I think, has a good shot. And Jesus, the Steelers. I mean, we'll get to that too. But Baltimore fans, don't hang your head. I mean, obviously, 28-3 really hurts in the fourth quarter. That one stings a little. But you guys played a great game, and you'll be in the playoffs, or you'll be thereabouts at least. Jets and Browns, we're not going to talk about this game extensively because we really didn't watch it that much. I really didn't even know what was happening. I had it on the screen. I saw the Jets get an onside kick, and I was like, oh, shit. The Jets got an onside kick. I was like, oh, that's crazy. What's the score? And I looked at the score. I was like, oh, they have a chance to win the game. They have a chance to win the game. And they did. Joe Flacco, elite quarterback.
Elite Joe. January Joe.
January Joe. All the way in September. Over 50% completion percentage. Skin of his teeth, but he got there. 307 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, he played a great game. I think Jacoby Brissett played a good game. He was pretty efficient. I don't know. It just seems like two teams that played a pretty good game against each other, probably around the same level of talent out there on the field, at least in terms of the quarterback position. I don't know, man. What's going on with Cleveland's defense?
Yeah, I mean, giving up 14 points in the last 2 minutes.
A minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're up 30-17. You're thinking, all right, well, we're on our way to 2-0, which is, as you alluded to, that young man that comes back in week 12.
Yeah, sorry.
Making these early wins are huge. I mean, for them to drop this game, I mean, that is enormous for them.
It's just a game they had to win, really.
Yeah, and a lot of love to Garrett Wilson too. I mean, goodness, he great all day. From the clips that I didn't really watch a lot of this game, but I saw his first touchdown is kind of like the last 2 drives in the game-winning touchdown. Yeah, I mean, he just looked great. His release off the line looked elite, as I expected him to, and
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah, exactly.
they keep feeding the ball.
Yeah, I mean he's a great player, and we knew in the draft, and I kind of I felt like he was probably wide receiver one in my opinion.
Yeah,
And just because of the Drake London injuries, and we'll talk about Drake London briefly too at some point because he did have also a pretty good game. I thought Garrett Wilson just had a really nice combination of speed and his route running ability. I mean, in the NFL, man, there's only so many ways you can separate yourself, and if you can't run good routes, you end up like Devontae Parker or Allen Robinson, who actually did have a decent game this week, but you just end up like guys that later in their career when their physical ability is dwindling, uh, it just you find it really difficult to actually have a decent career into your like 28, 29-year-old year. You're a flash in the pan for 5 years and that's it. I think Garrett Wilson has longevity because he's such a crisp route runner. He's just very capable in that respect. And he was the offense. He had 14 targets. I mean that is them not being afraid to run the offense through him. Credit to Robert Saleh because it seems like their offensive approach is very aggressive. 44 passing attempts. I mean, we thought Flacco was not going to sniff like 30 today or Sunday, and he got 44. That's pretty crazy.
yeah, for sure. And it's got to be nice to see as a Jets fan that you're not just back there handing the ball off and trying to win games 10-7.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, you got to be excited to see what Zach Wilson can do in this offense. I mean, obviously, he was up and down last year, more down than up. But I mean, you never know, and he could come back in this year when he's healthy, and he could take the reins from Flacco and really put up some numbers in this offense, and if as long as he can protect the ball, because that was Zach Wilson's biggest issue last year is too many interceptions, and maybe having a guy like Garrett Wilson out there with Elijah Moore and Brees Hall out of the backfield, Michael Carter out of the backfield, just giving him a lot of options where he doesn't have to feel like he needs to force the ball. It could be good for him. Maybe it changes things. The Browns, I mean, offensively, the Browns did what they do. I mean, they ran the ball a lot. They were efficient running the ball. Nick Chubb had 3 touchdowns. Jacoby Brissett, played fine. Didn't really turn the ball. He turned the ball over once. It's a Jacoby Brissett game. It's what you expect from him. And if he has that kind of game, you almost hope to win. Because he played fine. Targeted Amari Cooper a lot, which is kind of to be expected after last week where he barely got any. I played Donovan Peoples-Jones over 2.5 receptions because he had 12 targets last week and he got 0.
One target. Goodness.
Yeah, I mean, 0 catches on 1 target is for your wide receiver too. It's a little concerning because it just kind of makes you wonder about the depth in the receiver room when you got Harrison Bryant and Njoku, Chubb, Hunt. Like Nick Chubb had 3 catches today or Sunday. Like 3 catches. That is that's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, it is good for him, and it's good for if you have him in fantasy or if you played him in DFS. Like that's great, 3 catches is nice. But for your offense, if you're the Browns, like Nick Chubb can't have tied for the second most amount of catches on the team. That just doesn't bode well for them.
If I were to tell you that Matt LaFleur's brother was the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, what would you think?
I would say the Packers chose the wrong head coach. I would say the Packers should have just brought him in instead because at least he'll be aggressive and have more fun instead of just ruining what is such a great sport and just running 2 running backs into the dirt. Jesus. Commanders and Lions. Washington Commanders need to go back to the Washington football team after this one because this was not a good game for them in a lot of ways. Carson Wentz looked very confused and very lost. I haven't seen him look this lost probably since Philadelphia. I know last year he had some ups and downs, but man, I mean he looked really rough for about 2.5, 3 quarters of this game, and they tried to turn it on late, and it just wasn't enough, man. Detroit was able to hold on; they were able to pull this one out. Commanders are in trouble, I think. I thought that they may be dark horses for the division, especially after Dallas had the Dak Prescott injury. But the way the Eagles look and the way the Commanders looked on Sunday, it's a concern if you're a Washington fan, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the offense line was one thing. Allowing all those pressures all day. That's even tough for Wentz, and
Sure.
he did take sacks that were pretty bad, and he made some pretty bad decisions.
He
So
stepped into a couple of them, and we're going to talk about Aiden Hutchinson in a minute because he had 3, and we kind of poo pooed him last week. But we'll talk about that.
yeah, I
Keep
mean,
moving.
one covered sack, one free
Yeah,
rush, and one good rush. That's okay.
sure.
But no, in all seriousness, the defense for the Washington Commanders, you let Jared Goff throw for 4 touchdowns and just get fried all day, and they did whatever they wanted to do on offense: throw the ball, run the ball. That is very concerning. That is very concerning, and really back to back, not good defensive performances for them. So
Yeah, I mean, I think, but again, I think it's something that again I've been pounding the table on this for a long time with Washington. Is their secondary sucks, and they've sucked for a long time, and it just feels like their front seven. They're very well respected around the league, and for good reason because I believe they have 2 Pro Bowl, nearly almost you could say nearly all pro type players in John Allen and Deron Payne, and with when Chase Young comes back and like they've got talent up there. Their linebackers have been a question mark for years. Cole Holcomb is like a guy that gets regular minutes for them, like a lot. And I just don't understand it. And then you got a secondary that, in my opinion, just hasn't properly been addressed. I mean, they're still just not very good in the back half of their secondary, and it really shows, man. It shows up in games, and you see it. And every week, I feel like in DFS, I'm looking at who does Washington play? What pass catcher can I get from the other side? Are they playing at competent quarterbacks? If they are, then they're going to get 300 yards and a couple touchdowns because Washington's secondary and their defensive, and it may just be a scheme and game plan thing, but I know Benjamin St-Juste allowed like the most completions in the slot last year, the most highest completion percentage, or something crazy. Their secondary is just not very good.
yeah, no, they're not good at all. But I do want to give a lot of credit to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, he is turning into one of the probably 10 best receivers in the National Football League. I
Yeah.
mean, he is putting on a clinic every single week, and this week 9 catches, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, routing guys up, sitting in zone. He just has a very great understanding, for the wide receiver position. He even had a super long end around as well. Just
Yeah.
a complete player, a very joy to watch. And if you're a Lions fan, I mean, you got to be just ecstatic to see him go off like this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's a really interesting player. He's a guy that it's kind of what you want to see, especially out of a receiving room where there's no real standouts. It's kind of like if you're a Packers fan, it's what you kind of want to see Christian Watson do, or you really want to see Romeo Doubs or somebody just step up and really take the reins of the receiving room. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has done it. He is the perfect epitome of when preparation meets opportunity, right? Because he is a really really talented player. He always has been. But to get the opportunity for them to say you are our number one guy, we are going to go to you 12 times a game. Can you handle it? And for him to be able to answer that call and not only answer it, but really just almost lead this team. And obviously Goff has to get him the ball, so credit to him. But sometimes Amon-Ra makes it really, really easy for him to get the ball to him. One thing I do want to talk about also, it's pretty surprising looking at the box score. DeAndre Swift had 5 rushes for 56 yards, and Jamal Williams had 12. So I don't know. I mean, I knew it was kind of a timeshare, and I know DeAndre Swift has been hurt. That was just interesting. I need to look at the snap count numbers for that, but that's kind of an interesting split for them. And obviously, we would be remiss if we didn't give a big shout out to DJ Chark, following up his big game last week with just a goose egg and 4 targets. Good shit, DJ. Nice job. I don't know why I'm hating on DJ Chark. I really don't hate DJ Chark. It's just so funny to watch, and it's not funny, but I don't know. It depends on how sick you are in the head. I guess I'm a sicko, and I think it's funny. But to watch somebody go from being like people thought he was going to be an All-Pro receiver in Jacksonville, and then to watch him just tumble down to 0 catches on 4 targets from Jared Goff in Detroit is that's something. And yeah, like we said, we do need to talk about, or we need to at least congratulate Aiden Hutchinson on his 3-sack performance. We did poo poo and we shit on him last week, and he delivered. So we no more talking bad about him. He if we want him to, well, I guess if we want him to succeed, we should keep saying he sucks. But
well, yeah, I mean, or he goes up against that old offensive line every week.
Yeah.
No, I mean he definitely had with 5 pressures, 3 sacks. I mean he definitely had a good game. I think he came out because of injury a couple times. So if you're a Lions fan,
I'm gonna say they're all first half sacks as well.
Yeah, no, they were. They were on the first half. I mean, it was, like I said, one covered sack because Wentz walked right into it. He beat, whoever the tackle was on the second one, and then the third one they ran a little twist, little game up front. He got a free rush at him.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, he had a good game. If you're a Lions fan, you're hoping that he's okay, health wise. If you're a Michigan State fan, never mind.
then you really don't care too much. Malcolm
Yeah,
Rodriguez, wasn't he like a 7th round pick, 6th round pick who won that starting job?
yeah, out of Oklahoma
That's pretty
State,
solid,
first
man.
team All
That's
American.
solid.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's played well so far.
And before anybody that is a Washington fan listening to this thinks that Cole Holcomb's good because he had 10 tackles, I'm sure that'll if any Washington fans hear this, their first response will be, Cole Holcomb's one of our best defensive players, dude. What are you talking about? Like, dude, he sucks. I've watched him play too many. I've watched him play for too many years. I know he sucks. Speaking of sucks, Antonio Gibson had a really tough time. Again, that offensive line was just overrun. Antonio Gibson, in my opinion, is dead this year, and until further notice, because they just lost their center for a good part of the year as well. If they're going up against even a competent defensive front, I'm not touching the Commanders, period, point blank at all. I don't like anybody on their offense right now. Terry McLaurin's only getting like 4 catches for 75 yards, which is not a bad game, but for Terry, we're used to seeing him put up crazy numbers with Taylor Heineke, like. So for him to be this limited with Carson Wentz at quarterback, I mean, it says a lot about where the offense is. It says a lot about not necessarily Wentz, but just the offense in general. Yeah, I mean that is it's pretty surprising.
Yeah.
Pretty surprising result. I mean, all things considered, I don't think people are shocked because Detroit they looked fine week 1, but their defense looked kind of bad. They played a lot better and they deserved to win, and they got one. So we'll see how much Detroit can. How many wins they can string together. I wouldn't suggest it's any over like 6, but crazier things have happened. I mean, Chicago looks terrible, so that's 2 free wins potentially. So we'll see. Buccaneers and Saints. This was kind of a shit fest, man, and we kind of expected it to be that too. We kind of knew it was going to be just the kind of the shit bowl of the week. It wasn't, because there's one more that was worse, but this one was just terrible. And I mean, credit to us because we called the under, and I think most people probably did. But Todd Bowles again, their offense is horrible. I know they didn't have any receivers, but their offense looks really bad this year, and people are blaming Brady and saying Brady's done, and that might be true, but it's just it feels like a completely different game plan, a completely different attack to last season, or even the season before, and it's just kind of makes you wonder, what is Tampa Bay going to be this year? Are they really going to be a competitor in the NFC, or are they just maybe a playoff team and a one and done?
Yeah, I mean, coming into the season, that's why I picked the Saints to come out of the NFC, but that didn't look too good on Sunday. But it was a lot of this for the reason that the Bucs and their offensive line, like I didn't trust it, and Tom Brady's not trusting them either. I mean, he's getting the ball out, dumping it when he can. 3rd and 8, 9, he's like hitting 2 and 3 yard routes. He's just getting rid of it. He doesn't trust them. They're not protecting him, and then obviously no Godwin. Julio doesn't play. Mike Evans is a Family Guy. Peter Griffin versus the chicken rivalry. Marshawn Lattimore.
Mike Evans is getting early start on his post-playing boxing career.
Yeah.
We'll see him and Marshawn in the ring in about 10 years, and they're both washed and old.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're right. It is a different attack. I mean, maybe they know that the offensive line, they may have some, a strength maybe in run blocking. Not this week. Last week they looked pretty good.
Yeah. I agree.
Maybe that's why they're trying to put on the ground a little bit more. I don't know. This obviously. This isn't the same Bucs offense, and Bruce Arians standing on the sideline this week probably said to himself, "Man, I might need to get a headset on because this isn't looking."
Or maybe a uniform, and maybe he can go play like left tackle, because man, I mean they really are struggling. I mean, maybe make a phone call to Chicago, see if Tevin Jenkins is still on the market. I don't know, man, but something they've got to figure something out. This team is really struggling, and the offensive attack, like you said, I mean, they give Fournette the ball 24 times. I mean, geez, it's insane. Now, for future reference, if you consider playing Leonard Fournette in DFS, I would, because he is the only running back on that team that they trust. He's the only running back on the team that gets any looks, any red zone rushing attempts, any targets. He is that offense in terms of their running back, and that's pretty rare in the league right now to have one guy who is just like, he is the running back. And that's a pretty antiquated thing that they're doing, but that's what they're doing, and they're 2-0, so give them credit for that. On the flip side of the ball, talk about another running back who's turned back the years, turned back the clock. Mr. Mark Ingram only got 10 carries, had 60 yards. Maybe should have given it to him a little bit more. Seemed like it was pretty balanced too. I mean, along with 12, his longest rush was 12, and I remember watching it and thinking he was getting loose. So, maybe should have given it to him more. But Jameis looked a little bit more like Jameis this week to me.
Sure did.
He's kind of back to his old ways a little bit.
Yeah, it was really tough to see because I expected him to kind of take a step forward. And I know, if he's playing with the fraction in his back and all, I understand, but that has nothing to do with the decision making of making these passes. I mean, it was very disappointing watching him play like that because that's a game that they were, I think, they have 3-0 for a lot of the game, and it's 3-3 with going into the fourth quarter, and then to give up 17 unanswered, throw a pick six. It was a lot of. I feel like there was a lot of other fluky stuff that happened for the Saints, but Olave basically drops a touchdown, ends up really being a fumble on a play where he catches it in stride and he stumbles down and fumbles. Yep. They have to figure it out on offense. I still believe that this is a team, that can go pretty far. Jameis has to play better. There's no debate about it. They have the weapons to do so. Their defense is great. It's so lights out. They have to play. They have to find something on offense because if not, they're just going to waste a pretty talented roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the roster's already wasted, in my opinion. Again, Jameis Winston, we know what he is, man. We know who Jameis is, and he is this guy. 25 or 40. Usually you expect more yards, but a touchdown, 3 picks. You can even say it's 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, but that's what Jameis is, and to expect him to step up any more than what he's capable of and what he's shown he's capable of is in my opinion foolish for the Saints. And again, we talk about all the time, and I hate to shit on defensive head coaches because there's a couple good ones in the league, right? Sean McDermott does a nice job. He's not really an offensive guy, but he's aggressive and he has a nice offense over there. He knows what to do. But Dennis Allen, another defensive head coach. This is just a defensive head coach bowl, and it was. I was
just going to say didn't this game look like a nice defensive?
It did. It did.
Battle.
It looked like I was watching a game from the 1990s. It just wasn't. It's just nothing interesting about this game at all from the perspective of watching it. I had trouble getting into this game because I knew both of these teams were not very good. And people may be up in arms about saying Tampa Bay is not good, but they're not. At least not right now. And the offensive line, like you said, they're in big trouble. They've got to do something to right the ship. But to me, Tampa seems like maybe a 9-8, 10-7 team, and they sneak into the playoffs or win the division maybe and just make the playoffs that way. But where the Saints are going, if their offense doesn't improve as well, then they're not going to make the playoffs. They'll be lucky to be 9-8. And to be fair, the easiest or the best opportunity for the Saints to win against the Bucs is at home. So the fact that they didn't win that game it doesn't really spell good things for New Orleans moving forward. Looking at the next game on the slate, this is probably one we won't speak about too much. Would be Carolina taking on the New York Football Giants. Your thoughts?
Didn't really pay attention to this one too much.
You didn't watch this game?
No, not at all.
Wow.
There's absolutely no chance. I'm watching Daniel Jones. I love Brian Daboll, and the fact that he has his team at 2-0 is remarkable. I almost want to give him the coach of the year job right now.
Sure.
But I'm just looking at the box score. Goodness gracious, I didn't really miss much.
Yeah, it's terrible. This was not on because I have 2 monitors, right? So for those of you guys listening, I watched the game on 2 monitors. The games, right? I have 4 on one monitor, 4 on another. That's why when I say I don't see everything, it's because I don't have fucking 8 eyes and I can't see every single game, right? But I do a good job of scanning to see what's going on. I don't know how many times I scanned over and saw this game. This game was at the bottom left of my monitor that I don't really look at as often. This was as far away from my actual eyes as humanly possible. It just wasn't a very interesting game. Baker Mayfield, I really tried to defend him a little bit with the hate that came for him at the end of last year. He was injured. He took the Browns to the playoffs. I know that the Browns had a good team around him, and they built a good team around him. Took him to the playoffs, man, and it was first time in a long time. I felt like he got a lot of hate last year, and this year it seems like it might be warranted. Unfortunately, he had a QBR of 16. That is not great, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you go play for Matt Rule and your offensive
Yeah.
coordinator, Ben McAdoo. It doesn't really spell for success, and them sitting at 0-2 right now. The best course of action will probably be just go out there and lose every game and try to go get Bryce Young.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt anything. I don't think they're really locked in. I don't think they signed Baker to an extension, did they? I think they said they were. I don't know if they did or not. I don't think they did.
I believe
Um,
it was just a 1 year deal. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure.
exactly. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, to me, when you fire, and you're gonna love this, when you fire Joe Brady and you go get Ben McAdoo, it, it really does beg the question of what the fuck are you doing? Because Joe Brady is at least a young guy who's got an offensive like mind and a good offensive mind, and then you take him and you fire him, and you bring in a guy who has shown no propensity for offense, especially as with this time as a head coach for the Giants. This was supposed to be the Ben McAdoo revenge game, and it's like he wanted to get revenge on me because I had to watch it. Is the way that I felt. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
this was horrible, man. Christian McCaffrey, shout out to him. He got 100 yards on the ground. How the fuck did he manage? Oh, he broke a 49-yard run. Okay, I was gonna say, how the fuck did he manage that? All right, he had 5 targets again. Maybe McCaffrey's back as a fantasy player. And I've stayed away from him on DraftKings past 2 weeks. Maybe this week I should have played him, but I certainly didn't. Man, I mean, looking on the Giants side of it, like you said, Daboll's great. I love Daboll. I enjoyed having him for 1 year at Alabama. Then he moved on because, of course, he did. I enjoyed him his year that he was there. Thought he did a great job of bringing in an actual offense with some interesting moving parts to it. Daniel Jones, oh man, five five yards per completion is not very good. Or maybe it's per attempt. Either way, it's just not. That's not good. He didn't turn the ball over unless he fumbled. He did not. So he didn't turn the ball over. That's great. That's probably why they won, because he didn't turn the ball over. Robbie Anderson fumbled. Chuba Hubbard fumbled. What a player Chuba Hubbard is, man. He wasn't he the one at Oklahoma State that was like he was gonna sit out and shit, and he was like, oh man,
Yep.
I'm fucking first round running back. I'm not gonna. I don't need this. And then yeah, he is terrible. Saquon 21 carries 72 yards. Not great. Uh, Richie James is apparently reincarnated.
Wide
Antonio
receiver
Brown,
one.
yeah, just Antonio Brown reincarnated. Just fantastic. What a player. Sterling Shepard, 6 for 34 is his ADOT had to have been abysmal.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this now, and even like Kadarius Toney had that 2 catches for 0 yards. There's no way they're even allowing Daniel Jones to push the ball down the field.
Nah.
Losing a game like this. Maybe I'm not even gonna say next week because Dallas has a really good pass rush. So I doubt the plan will change. But if they play a team, not as good as pass rush, and the opposing offense will score more points, maybe they'll be trying to be more aggressive. But if you played like a Carolina, a Dallas right now, probably gonna see much of the same kind of quick passes. Don't lose the game in one play.
Yeah, I mean that's really all you
I
can
mean,
hope for,
I
I
guess it's
guess.
smart from Dable. So.
Sure, I mean he's 2-0. I mean he beat the Panthers and the. Did they beat the Browns? Is that who they beat week one? It was
Titans.
Titan. Oh my, yeah. 2-0 for Daboll. I think that probably comes to a screeching halt next week, but we'll see. Oh man, I don't have a lot to say about this game. I feel like I could have a lot to say. Like if I really wanted to talk about this, I could, but it's like it's 12:15 in the morning. We're recording this. I just don't know if I have the energy to really get into it.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
this is the third game in a row that was basically the same game. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's like that the fucking like they ask you how you are and you say it's fine, but it's not really fine, but you can't get into it because they just wouldn't understand. That's how I feel talking about these games. It's like it's almost like Chinese water torture or something. You know what I mean? Like you just can't talk, you can't watch football like this because this game right here, if you watch this, if somebody put this on at like Sunday Night Football, America would fall asleep. Like collectively, America would fall asleep. They should prescribe this instead of Ambien to people. Like, watch this game and you will fall asleep in 30 minutes. It is so boring. It is so devoid of any interesting moving parts. It is Mac Jones who is an Alabama quarterback, so I have to at least like him a little bit. He is what he is, and oh man, like Mitch Trubisky, like this game right here is a stinker. Um, Damian Harris
Yeah.
showing why he is, uh, in my opinion, one of the more disrespected running backs in the league. For them to just bring in Ramondre Stevenson and say, all right, you're taking a timeshare, when Damian Harris is one of, in my opinion, just he's got great vision. He cuts well. He's not super fast, but he's just a really good runner. And he again had a great game. Ramondre Stevenson also had a good game. So I guess, like, what do I know? But Nelson Aguilar, mossed poor, what was his name?
Hello,
Witherspoon. Kello
Witherspoon.
Witherspoon. Yeah, he just mossed poor Kello Witherspoon. Like, he didn't have to do that to him, and he did. Nelson Aguilar didn't want to go to overtime. He said, "Fuck it, I got to score or something, or we're gonna go to overtime. I have to keep playing."
Yeah.
Look, Jacoby Myers went crazy. I mean, I didn't even know that. Jacoby Myers went crazy, so good for him. I mean,
Yeah.
Devontae Parker, 0 catches on 2 targets. That's the easiest under ever. If you want to play Devontae Parker under receptions every single week, you can. It's free. People are just giving away money. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the Patriots side. I'm seeing if there's anything interesting that happened defensively. Jalen Mills got a pick, probably his first one in like 4 years. Nothing else really interesting happened.
Minka got one too.
Minka did get one. Yeah, we're gonna talk about them in a second, because I got more to say about them. I think the Patriots. It's like they fucking hired Matt Patricia to run the offense and Joe Judge. Like, the Patriots are gonna be shit. They're gonna be terrible.
Exactly.
They're just gonna be bad. Like, they're gonna win 7 games and they're gonna be fucking bad. And then Bill's gonna retire, and then Matt Patricia's gonna take over, and it's gonna be shit forever. Like, I don't know, man. They've missed on a lot of draft picks. They've missed on a lot of free agent picks. I mean, it really is collapsing around Bill, and it's time for him to get out. And I respect Bill a lot, and I think he's probably one of the best head coaches ever. But he should have gotten out 3 years ago. He shouldn't have stayed for this rebuild. This is because to me it taints his legacy, because it makes you think this is an old, out of touch guy who doesn't know how to win football games in the NFL like right now anymore. Like, the shit's passing him by. He made the playoffs last year, but God, I mean, did they really deserve to? That team was so bad last year. They were the worst team in the playoffs by a mile. And the Eagles were in the playoffs too. Like, yeah, the Patriots. Fuck the Patriots, dude. Fuck them. They're fucking terrible. I don't want.
Yeah, and like you alluded to, it's it really makes Bill seem, obviously, like you said, this out of touch old coach.
Yeah.
He was really one of the first coaches to incorporate analytics, into his game plan, at least defensively, and he had some offensive stuff though.
Yeah.
But he never really played like a base 4-3 or 3-4. He was always multiple, showed a bunch of different looks. Really ran nickel and penny, dime, all that before, like, really ahead of his time almost. And for him to kind of go out like this is
it's just sad, man. It's sad. It's like if Nick Saban goes out at Alabama like 6-6 for 3 years. Like, just fucking give it up, man. Like, you just got to give it up. Like, and again, I know that the response to that would be, oh, they made the playoffs last year. Dude, they were bad last year too. They got bailed out a couple games. Then they beat the Bills in like the snow game where they ran the ball 700 times. Like,
two passes.
Some of that stuff is just like, they didn't deserve to be in the playoffs last year. And I'm not saying the Dolphins did either, but they definitely didn't. The Patriots did not, and they're terrible. They're going to continue to be bad. They're going to win some games just because, like, Bill is going to will them into wins. I think that's kind of what happened this week. Along with the combination of something else we're going to talk about. Like,
we are. Oh my goodness.
We're going to talk about the con job of the century, right? Because somehow Mitch Trubisky played so terrible in Chicago that he got cut, or they didn't pick up his option, or whatever the fuck happened. And he went to Buffalo for 1 year, sat behind Josh Allen, didn't do shit but just sit there. And now somehow he got a starting job in the NFL. And I don't understand. Like, we talk about all these quarterbacks, all these rookie quarterbacks, and like, this year's rookie quarterback class is obviously very just, I would just say that they're just not up to the standard that we're used to seeing from NFL quarterback classes coming out of college. And it's because a lot of them are, senior guys, older players who just, stayed around and earned their spot, and, Desmond Ridder and Kenny Pickett and, like, old quarterbacks, right? Yeah, Malik Willis is 25. Like, Kenny Pickett's 25 and Desmond Ritter's 25. Like we just got 25-year-old rookie quarterbacks, right? And Mr. Trubisky's probably like 25 too. He's probably 26. But you can't take a quarterback that was so horrific in Chicago, sit him behind a good quarterback for one season, and think all of a sudden that he is a starting caliber quarterback. Just play Kenny Pickett, dude. Like at the very least, you drafted Kenny Pickett the first round. You got to at least play him because you're not winning any games with Trubisky at quarterback against a competent football team. At the very least, if you put Pickett out there, and I know the offensive line's not good, but if you at least put Pickett out there and just see what he can do, then you'll know, okay, do we really need do we have the quarterback we need, or do we just waste a first round pick on a guy that's not the guy? But you need to know that now. Like you already know Trubisky's not the answer. So I don't really know what Tomlin's doing, just like sticking his head in the sand and continuing to run with Trubisky.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he can't start after this week. I mean,
No,
back-to-back
God.
abysmal performances. He got lucky last week that bro threw 10 million picks and a bunch of missed field goals.
Right.
You cannot keep running him out there, especially with the talent that you have on that team. Not only defensively, you have a pretty good wide receiver room. Pat Freiermuth is a damn good tight end.
Yeah.
You cannot keep running him out there like that. When really the division is really up in the air. Like
it's wide open, man. It's wide open.
Yeah.
But your defense is good enough to beat the Ravens. Like you're good enough to beat them on defense. And if your offense could wake up from its 3-year coma because Ben's been there for 3 years, and maybe they just realize like, oh, well, we can replace Ben with Mitch. It's not going to be that big of a deal. But like, it's not that big of a difference. But the thing is, like, Mitch is so bad, and like, why would you even draft a quarterback then? Like, if you're not going to play the quarterback you drafted, and you're going to play Mitch Trubisky, why? Like, I really have a tough time understanding it. Najee Harris was completely inefficient again, as is expected. He can't run behind that offensive line. They don't open any holes for him to run through. He doesn't. If they do, he doesn't see them. Just inefficient running back, and just kind of sad.
He had a Trent Richardson moment out there. I think he's still a little injured, but it's rough watching him run. He doesn't really plant his foot in the ground and get explosive up the field.
He's not explosive at all, though. He's not an explosive runner.
Yeah,
it's kind of just hard. It's hard to watch him. And I thought the same thing when he was in Alabama. I liked him as a college running back. I thought he was a good college running back. I thought in the NFL he was definitely going to have limitations. They found a way to utilize him in the passing game, which I think is going to make him seem like a better running back than he actually is. And it pains me. It does, because I'm still the type, like, I wouldn't even really admit that Bo Scarborough is bad. Like, I think Bo Scarborough has a spot in the league somewhere. Somebody's fourth, like, their short down back, their goal line back. Like, he could score some touchdowns. But
I do agree. Some team definitely needs a guy to hand the water to the quarterback.
Relax. Relax. But finding a way to utilize him in the passing game is nice. But you draft a first round running back. I mean, you kind of expect him to. You expect him to do a little bit more than this, and it's not Najee's fault necessarily. The offensive line is terrible, but it's just tough. I mean, he did have 20 touches for 89 yards, which in isolation is not bad, but when you see 15 carries, 49, it just really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, exactly, and I mean, it really just goes back to the quarterback, and if you put Kenny Pickett out there, two things you'll see: if he's competent, if he can play. Yeah. And you'll know if Matt Canada just needs to go.
Exactly. I agree with that, too.
Yeah. And you need to know now. This prolonging, Tomlin just wants to go 9-8, 8-9. That needs to stop. It's like, why do you want to just be in purgatory for the next 3 to 4 years? Like, what's the fun in that? Like,
I agree. And see, I would never necessarily campaign for this. But I oftentimes, when I watch the Steelers, wonder if it's time for Mike Tomlin to step away from them. And not that he necessarily would want to, or not that they would even ask him to do that, or they want him to. But he's been there for so long, and they feel like they're kind of in a place right now where they're just in a rut. And sometimes, just as an organization, you need that head coaching change. Like, you just need a fresh set of eyes on the organization, on the team, on the players. And again, I don't know how Steelers fans feel about that. I'm sure that they're Tomlin till they die or whatever. But I mean, sometimes it just feels like you're right. Like they're toiling in mediocrity, and do they really have to? And I don't really know the answer to that. I know their defense played really well. barring the one Nelson Aguilar just took the game into his own hands and decided that he wanted the Patriots to win. Basically, he was just like, I kind of want to win this game. Let's just win, and he did. Miles Jack got 13 tackles. Minka again had another pick. Mac Jones threw just a horrible pass, and Minka picked it off. I'll celebrate a Mac pick as long as it's to Minka. If it's anybody else, then I'll be a little sad for Mac, but can't be sad about him throwing a pick to Minka. But yeah, I thought that's a Percy Harvin. It's Presley Harvin. And we keep it moving. I forget that they have a punter named Presley Harvin. I mean, again, we talked about this game longer than we probably should have, but these are just two like blue blood type blue chip programs here, blue chip organizations, and to see them both in kind of a similar position is it's not necessarily sad, because like it's time for some new faces up at the top. You know what I mean? But it just feels like a changing of the guard, and it feels like that game was almost the perfect encapsulation of what's wrong with both of those organizations at the same time.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's just, it's just, again, I wouldn't say it's sad, but it's just interesting, I guess. But from one dumpster fire to another.
Man.
Let's talk about Jacksonville first.
Okay.
Because I want to make sure we give them the credit they deserve. Jacksonville is apparently a fortress to play in. You don't want to go to Jacksonville ever to play a football game, especially if you're a team from Indiana, because you can't beat Jacksonville there. They are impenetrable at home. Trevor Lawrence played, I think, an efficient football game, and I think he played like Tua. Like, I hate to say that. I think he played like Tua. Like, everybody claims Tua plays. That's kind of how Trevor Lawrence played. Like, took the dump offs, took the short stuff, took the easy stuff. 25 for 30, very efficient game, 2 touchdowns. It's a good football game from him. It's as opposed to last year where Urban Meyer had him throwing 4 interceptions every game. So good for him. Really, really nice. James Robinson showing that he's the bell cow with 2.8 yards per carry. He also had a run of 37, which means realistically he was 22 carries for 27 yards. That's not good. ETN wasn't much better, so it's not like you can call for ETN to get the ball more. But that's pretty inefficient running when you run 31 times between your two running backs and you barely crack 80 yards and you had a 40-yard run. That's rough. Receiving wise, Christian Kirk still wide receiver 1. Evan Ingram had his breakout game a week too late. I was expecting it to be last week. It wasn't. It's this week. And by breakout, I mean like 11 fantasy points. Marvin Jones, ETN. I mean, Zay Jones again is involved. I mean, it wasn't a sexy game from Jacksonville by any standard on offense, but on defense, I thought they shined on defense. I thought they looked really good. And again, I didn't watch this whole entire game, but I definitely caught a good bit of it just because I was trying to see, and I also had a bet on the Colts as well. So I was trying to just see what the hell was happening. And Josh Allen, not that one, went crazy today or Sunday. He was all over Matt Ryan. He just made him miserable. Matt Ryan was in hell on Sunday.
Yeah, no, he has shown flashes, throughout his first couple years in the National Football League, and again on Sunday, I mean, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits. I mean, he's probably a bunch of pressures, tackle for loss.
Tons of pressures, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he looked really good.
Yeah,
that's very encouraging to see from Jacksonville. And just speak on Trevor Lawrence again. It's a very efficient game. I did catch some glimpses of this game.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed pretty calm in the pocket. Pretty cool, very sharp. Not trying to force the ball downfield, not trying to force some double covers like he often does because he trusts his golden arm. He has a really good arm, obviously.
Yeah, he does. Great arm.
But just trusting the game plan, taking what the defense is giving him. Very smart game from Trevor Lawrence, and going forward, that's what you expect to see from a guy that was touted as the next Peyton Manning, all this up there. So it was very encouraging to see that from Trevor.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Doug Peterson's probably the perfect coach for him. I think Doug Peterson is a guy that he's not going to go out of his way to be ultra aggressive all the time, but he is going to play a competent offensive system that is going to give him opportunities to change the game, but also give him opportunities to just keep the game at a steady pace, especially a game that you're winning. And Jacksonville's not used to having a game like this, where they're just winning the whole game, right? So I think realistically, what you could expect from this team, is it honestly is encouraging to see. Not only can they beat a team like the Colts, but they can comfortably beat them and have an offense that looks maybe not super threatening, but competent for most of the game. Especially when your defense is playing like they are. Matt Ryan had a QBR of 6, so it you know it begs the question. Uh, I guess the Falcons were probably right to get rid of him when they did. Um, it what what can the Colts do? Because they're stuck with Matt Ryan. They don't have a choice. It feels like the Wentz situation all over again. It's like you went from Carson Wentz and you said, "Wow, we made a fucking horrible mistake trading picks for this guy." Right? This guy is terrible. We're cutting him. We're trading him. Whatever. And then you trade for Matt Ryan, who is a bag of dust, who can't move in the pocket. He's not. He's not an exciting quarterback anymore. He's not an MVP. Like he threw 3 picks. He got screamed at the whole game. I mean, he nearly had an under 50% completion percentage. It was just all bad from Indianapolis, and it seems like that's kind of like how their whole season's been so far.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that offensive line, he expected that to be kind of like the bright spot on that team, and they have been absolutely
Jesus,
terrible.
yeah,
Given, I would say, I think 2 of those sacks were on Matt Ryan, but the other 3 were on the offensive line. Just
yeah,
really no time to throw, and it raised the question: why on earth did you pay Quentin Nelson, a guard, all of that
yeah.
money, and and he's locked up for what the next 4 or 5 years? It makes no sense. I really compare the situation to Tennessee. I think the Colts and Tennessee are really just the same type of team.
They
They
are.
want to get an under center, get an eye
Yeah,
for him, hand the ball off, and throw when you have to. And I don't think Reich and Vrabel realize that the year is 2022, and you just cannot win like that. And with them playing like that, I mean, we haven't talked about it yet, but they're opening the division to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's very sad if they were to lose the division to the Jaguars
I
in
hope they
the
do.
first year.
I hope they do. I hope
Yeah,
Jacksonville does make the playoffs. I would love to see them make the playoffs, and I would love to see the Colts and the Titans take a step back because, like you said, and it's because I love football so much, and I want good coaching, and I want progressive play to be rewarded. I don't want Mike Vrabel to get another 9-win season to make the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game. Like the Titans, and we'll get to that. The Colts and the Titans, like you said, they are both a very similar style of team, except that the Colts actually have a good defense. That's what makes the Colts kind of a scarier team in terms of the ability to make the playoffs. But when your quarterback is getting pressured the way that Matt Ryan's getting pressured, when he's throwing the ball out of pressure into interceptions, when you have a 38, 37-year-old quarterback making boneheaded decisions, rookie type decisions, that's when you start kind of screaming for that's a cause for concern. Uh, and Jonathan Taylor 9 for 54. He had a long of 21, but I mean he touched the ball 9 times. Like Jonathan Taylor, or 10 times. Yeah, he had a catch. Jonathan Taylor is one of the most, if not most electric players in the league. He's definitely one of the premier players in the NFL. At least he was last year. So to give him the ball 10 times, I don't care if you have to throw it to him. I don't care if you have to line him up in the slot. I don't care if you have to line him up out wide. You got to get the ball in his hands somehow. And Ashton Dulin seemed like he had a great game, but he can't be the focal point of your offense, even if you're losing. Like you have to find a way to get JT involved, and they just didn't, and they paid the price. I mean, they got thumped by Jacksonville, and I don't know how many people saw that coming.
yeah, they definitely did. Yeah, I mean, it's just back to the old, just not creative offense and just lining him up under center when Matt Ryan under center and widen everybody up in the box, as you like to say.
Yeah,
That's how they play.
it's the wad, man. It's the wad. It is brutal to watch, and again,
It
like
is.
this game was interesting to me because of the Colts just falling apart. Really, I mean, they're just falling apart. And everybody likes to watch a good train wreck. That is a train wreck. What the Colts are doing right now. Another train wreck. A potential train
Oh,
wreck.
jeez.
Uh, I mean, if we're being unbiased, if we're being objective here, the Saints just let their foot off the gas a little too much. That's really what happened, right? Like Atlanta, Arthur Smith. Give a lot of credit to Arthur Smith. He's got his team playing really hard. They're terrible. Just personnel wise, they're bad. like, all over the place. But he has his team playing really, really hard, and it's never a substitute for talent, but it certainly helps because when you have untalented players that aren't playing hard, you really, you find yourself in a really bad spot. Uh, Arthur Smith has his team playing hard. They're not necessarily going to win a lot of games this year, but it just shows you that if you take your foot off the gas against Atlanta, that they definitely can, at the very least, compete with you.
Yeah, I mean, I experienced that firsthand. The Rams -9.5, and it's 28. It's 28-3, and I'm cracking 28-3 jokes with my Falcons friends, and I guess that came back to bite me in the ass in the end, huh? Because you're right, they definitely were playing hard, and they had a chance at the end. Jalen Ramsey makes a great play, interception in the game, but yeah, I mean, the
And
Rams obviously
not
they
a great
dominated.
throw by Mariota, to be fair, as well. I mean,
Yeah,
not a
yeah,
great throw. But...
yeah, for sure. Now, the Rams, they dominate this game, obviously, and Stafford threw a couple of very interesting picks. He's on his way to a 30-30 season. Shout out Jameis, shout out Matthew Stafford. I mean, just much of the same. I mean, the run game couldn't really get going. Cooper Kupp dominated. Just a very Rams-esque performance. They farmed Allen Robinson a touchdown at the goal line. Shout out him. He's alive.
Yeah, great.
God
Yeah,
bless.
they really forced the ball to him a little bit, which is great. I mean, good for him. I mean, you signed him for all that money. That's kind of what I said week one. Like, you sign him for a lot of money, you at least got to throw him the ball. Like, you have to just to make your money back on him. Because nobody's gonna buy an Allen Robinson jersey to help you recoup your losses if you don't throw him the ball. So you can at least throw it to him sometime.
Yeah, that is true.
Something encouraging, at least in fantasy perspective from Atlanta's side. Tyler Algier getting 10 carries is interesting to me because he was a healthy scratch, I believe, week one. So seeing him play week two and seeing him get 10 carries is interesting. Cordero Patterson obviously got 10 as well, but Cordero Patterson was barely used in the passing game. So I'd be interested if I'm not interested enough to actually go watch that game again, but I'm interested to see or hear about maybe what the deal was with Cordero in the passing game and why he wasn't as involved. I mean, they threw it 25 times. It's not like they just aired it out, but still kind of curious. And again, questions should probably be asked about if Desmond Ridder is going to get to play this year. I think Desmond Ridder can do the same things Mariota's doing with his legs, if not maybe a little bit more, because there's less tread on those tires. Not that Mariota for the past few years has had any tread put on them, but I mean, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 196 yards. It's pretty underwhelming stats, and it's like, you want to put a veteran quarterback ahead of a rookie that's going to protect the ball and give you a chance to win games. Mariota's not really protecting the ball, so what's the point? Kind of the same thing with Trubisky. Like, what's the point? What's the real point in having a veteran ahead of your guy if they're not really doing much to help your team win? I just don't, I don't know. Drake London, we can talk about him. Bright spot for Atlanta. Obviously, drafted a tight end top 5, and he had 2 catches, like tight ends do. So congratulations for that, you degenerates. You fell for the bait, the generational talent bait, and you fell for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is on Arthur Smith too.
It certainly is, but it's fun to poke fun at the fact that they took a tight end like 4th or 5th or whenever they took him. It's still funny. Drake London, though, I mean, showing that he was a good pick, man. I mean, the injuries don't seem to be bothering him too much. His past injuries, he seems like he's on the right track. I mean, 12 targets means that he is getting a workload, and he's showing he can handle it.
Yeah, no, very, very talented receiver. One of I think I had Garrett Wilson 1 and then Drake London 2. So a banner day for me. I'll pat myself on the back there. Yeah. Obviously, next week they're going to both drop 3 passes each, but
sure, yeah.
But no, yeah, I mean, he's super talented, big body receiver, can go up and win. He can create separation. He's very talented, and obviously, like you said, the injuries coming into his NFL career were somewhat of a concern, I guess. But so far so good, and hopefully he continues that.
Yeah, and again, that receiving core, once Calvin Ridley gets off of suspension for the murder that he committed, then that receiving core might end up being okay. It is too bad that he had to commit such a heinous crime against the league and miss out on at least one, maybe more seasons. But hey, that's the rules, and he knew the rules.
I think him and Pete Rose can.
Yeah, man. Talk. Yeah, I mean, how dare you? How dare you? You shame the league in that way, Calvin. Instead, you should have. Well, never mind.
to go to
Well,
Cleveland.
we'll we'll shift gears. We'll shift gears. Like we talked about the Rams. I mean, I thought it was interesting because Sean McVay said that Cam Akers should do more with his opportunities, and he gave him a lot more opportunities this week, and he had 2.9 yards carry. So
Yeah,
again, I mean,
I don't think he'll
great,
get many more opportunities.
great way to seize your opportunity there, Cam. I always thought he was a little bit overrated coming out of college. I mean, he was Florida State, but he was the only good part of the Florida State team. He was the only thing about that team that was worth the shit. So like, you know, when you got one good player on your whole team and you make him the focal point of the team, it's really easy to make him look like an NFL talent. And I'm not saying that he's not an NFL talent, and I'm not saying that the Achilles has nothing to do with this, because I'm sure it does. Because coming back from Achilles has to suck. I can't imagine tearing your Achilles. It must be the worst, probably the worst injury that you could go through, other than maybe breaking your leg, I guess. But Darrell Henderson just looks better than him. He just looks better. He looks like he's got more burst. He looks more elusive. He's just a better running back right now. So don't feed Cam Akers because you wasted a draft pick on him, McVay. That just doesn't make any sense. Don't feed somebody because you wasted a draft pick. Feed the guy that's the hot hand. Feed the guy that's the better player. And right now it's Darrell Henderson, and I know that seems like a crazy thing to say, especially coming into the season. Nobody would have believed it, but right now it's the truth. Cooper Kupp obviously did Cooper Kupp things. We don't really have to talk about him. Everybody knows how great Cooper Kupp is. If you don't know, then welcome to life in 2022 after the rock that you've been living under. Tyler Higbee, thought it was interesting because people kind of thought Tyler Higbee was going to have a good game. I don't know that people would have predicted him to have 9 targets and 7 catches, but he could be a very integral part of that offense moving forward. Especially when you don't really have any other receivers out there. You have Allen Robinson, or the corpse of Allen Robinson, and Ben Skoranek. So
especially until Van Jefferson gets
Van
back.
Jefferson, yeah, right. That'll help a lot, I think. And Tutu Atwell, man, what a draft pick! What a terrific talent, because he couldn't even register a target. I would love to see his snap share on offense if he even got on the field. And I don't say that to shame Tutu Atwell. It's more for the people who bang their drum, like people who bang the Tutu Atwell drum before the draft, saying like, oh my God, you can't miss this guy in the 3rd round or 4th round or whatever, and then it's James Prochet all over again, where people just bang that drum and he just isn't anybody. He's just nobody of note. It's just funny, man. But yeah, as a game, again, it's not really a lot to talk about. I mean, the Rams just took the foot off the gas. The Falcons tried to capitalize, and at the end, it was just not enough. There's just not enough talent. Talent just kind of wins out eventually, and it did. So, oh God, jeez, man. Well, let's just talk about the obvious thing to talk about would be Trey Lance breaking his ankle. It's a really unfortunate injury for a player that I think the Niners really needed to know what he is this year. This would be year number 2. I think it's really important in terms of understanding the quarterback that you have, especially when you have a tenured coach like Shanahan. And he has a very specific skill set that he needs in his quarterback. And I think this was kind of his year to gauge Trey Lance and see, all right, how good is this guy? Are we going to keep him? Is he long term, or is he kind of like did we miss on him? Because I think last year when you draft a guy 3rd overall, and he doesn't start in the first year, and I know Jimmy G played fine, but he really needed this year to kind of see what Trey Lance is. So now you're going into that 3rd year with no idea at all what Trey Lance can be, and that is a concern if I'm San Francisco, because Jimmy's leaving after this year, right? So I would be mildly concerned if I was San Francisco right now.
Yeah, definitely sucks for Trey Lance to lose a season, and I believe Dak had a very similar kind of injury.
Yeah.
And he comes back and he isn't running nearly as much as he did. It's not nearly
barely
as effective.
At all.
Yeah, and if you told the Niners that you were going to take Trey Lance as pocket quarterback, I mean, I'm sure Trey Lance might have been a drafted free agent at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you take Mac Jones at that point if you're going to do that.
Exactly. So I mean, it definitely sucks. But as far as the Niners going forward in this season, No, I hate to say it, but I think it really helps them out having Jimmy G. I mean, he's a very consistent quarterback for them. He's really not gonna lose you any games. He's gonna make plays that's there. He gets rid of the ball quick. He's pretty accurate for the most part. And once they put him in the game, they were just driving just down the field. I mean, they scored 14 points or 14 points in the second quarter, 20 in the first half. In the second half, they kind of ran the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, they took the foot off the gas. That's the Shanahan way. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. It is really sad for Trey Lance because it is a guy that, and I think it's sad for a lot of football fans in general because I think a lot of people were really interested and curious to see what he was going to be. I was never personally sold on the Trey Lance experience. A division, a FCS quarterback who barely ever threw the ball in college. Yes, he has the measurables. Yes, he has the athleticism. But it's like you're taking a relative unknown there and hoping that Shanahan can develop him. And now what it seems like you've done is take a developmental quarterback third overall, and now you don't even really have a chance to develop him at all this second year. And that hurts, man. That really hurts, especially a young quarterback in their development in the NFL. It's brutal, and I've heard people say that Jimmy gives them a better chance to win. And I think that's probably a reasonable thought. My only thing is we really don't know what kind of opportunity Trey Lance would have given them. We don't really know what that team was going to be. We didn't see it against Chicago because they didn't really have an opportunity to do anything in the monsoon. So it's hard because you don't really know what that team was going to be with Trey Lance. You can kind of assume that they probably wouldn't be as efficient as they will be with Jimmy. And there will be games where Jimmy Garoppolo's limitations as a quarterback and his just overall mediocrity, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but just his overall just kind of average play is not enough. But again, I mean, in what I would say this season seems to be a wide open NFC. I don't see why the 49ers can't make a run at it. I mean, it's not a very crowded NFC.
Yeah, no, 100%. I actually think I kind of like them to win that NFC West at this point. I really don't like what I see from the Rams, the Cardinals. I mean, we'll speak on them later. I don't think they're very good either. Obviously, the Seahawks played. I really like them to compete and really might win the NFC West. Jimmy, he's going to be, like I said, very consistent. He won't really lose you any games. And like you said, his his lack of athleticism, in his limits will hurt him in some games. But you just figure that Kyle Shanahan will outcoach the other offensive mind, overall, and put him in a situation where they make explosive plays and they'll get Kelsey back and Debo will gradually be a little more intricate part of the offense, especially with Jimmy G back. He really trusts him. So I think going forward, this is definitely really a Super Bowl contending team almost, just like last year. I mean,
yeah, I believe that they're a Super Bowl in terms of getting to a Super Bowl. I don't think they're
yeah. I meant more so like NFC
to get there. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you look at last year; they were a Jaquiski Tartt interception away from going to the Super Bowl.
Exactly. And again, I do not under any circumstances think they're capable of winning a Super Bowl with that roster. I think, I mean, obviously anything could happen in football, any given Sunday, all that, right? But if you told me that the 49ers are in the Super Bowl and you tell me almost any team from the AFC, I'm saying, okay, they'd probably lose. And not any team, but like any real playoff contending team from the AFC, I'm like, okay, the Bills, they probably lose to the Bills, they probably lose to the Chiefs, they probably lose to the, maybe the Ravens. Give them a game. I don't know. I mean, it feels like most of the AFC contenders could probably beat the Niners. Maybe I should have put the Chargers instead of the Ravens, but I definitely wasn't gonna put the Dolphins because I'm not trying to overreact after 1 week, dude. I'm not doing that. Okay, we're gonna keep it really even keel here.
I will. It is more than okay. You put the Dolphins on that list because if Jimmy G can make the Super Bowl.
I won't do
Tua Tagovailoa can make the Super Bowl with Tyreek Hill.
I won't do it. I will not. I won't say those words. I can't do that. I'm not going to jinx it. If it's going to happen, it'll happen. That's fine.
I'm not doing this, so quit asking.
Not doing it. Geno Smith on the flip side. I mean, Seattle are pretty toothless. It's kind of what we expected. We knew coming out of a really passionate win against Russell Wilson at home that it was going to be a letdown for them. And it was a good comeback spot for San Francisco after losing on the road in less than ideal conditions. This had all the makings of just a beatdown. and it's basically what we expected. I thought Seattle would probably try to run the ball more. It just seems like they were kind of ineffective. They really didn't try very hard. They just kind of threw it around. It was mostly short passes, and it's basically what you would expect from this type of game in this type of environment, and what each team did the week before. Nothing really surprised me here. There's just not a whole lot to say. It was exactly what we expected from Seattle. A lot of what we expect from San Francisco. I think that's it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's just not a lot to talk about with this one. I mean,
I do want to give Talona Hufanga a lot of credit. That's safety for the Niners. I mean, a lot of long hair Hawaiian, players get the Troy P comparison, but he really does move like him on the field. It's actually insane to watch. If you haven't watched him, maybe key in on number 29 for the 49ers. He's a joy.
There you go. Moving on to the Bengals and the Cowboys game. This is hilarious, in my opinion. This is hilarious to watch the NFL darling Cincinnati Bengals from last year, who I thought, and again, I thought they were probably one of the most overrated teams in the NFL last year. I think that they got hot at the right time. I think that they caught fire. I think that teams just, for some reason, had an issue defending Ja'Marr Chase. And not that Ja'Marr Chase is not a good receiver. He is fantastic. But it just felt like teams didn't really understand a way to attack this offense. And it seems like Zach Taylor and the Bengals have kind of been caught up with a little bit. And look, you can make the complaint about Burrow's offensive line all you want to, but they dropped like $70 million on the offensive line. They brought in 4 brand new starters. So, and I'm not saying that he has a ton of time to work back there, but Joe Burrow is, and a lot of people don't actually know this because they don't actually look at the metrics or don't look at the stats. Joe Burrow holds the ball longer than most quarterbacks in the NFL.
Any quarterback in the league. He has taken the most amount of sacks over expected among any quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he holds the ball forever. And it's because he was at LSU holding the ball forever. So it's something that he's done his whole career. It's not something that just started happening like this year or last year. It is something that Joe Burrow has done consistently his whole career. It is a vice of his. It is a big negative con on his resume, on his his attributes as a player, is the fact that he holds the ball forever. So when you put a quarterback who holds the ball forever behind an offensive line that just can't protect, or definitely can't give him the time that he needs, you get results like this. And again, I hate to equate it to the Dolphins. I hate to equate everything to the Dolphins. I try really hard not to do it, especially on the podcast. I do it in Discord enough. I do it just constantly, but I'll try not to for the podcast. But when you look at a quarterback like Tua and you look at the offensive line that he's had to play with for the past 2 or 3 years, and you see the sack numbers, and I think his sacks above expectancy. He's like the best in the league in terms of like not getting sacked.
Right? Yes,
yeah. So you just look at the vast difference, right? And you see quarterbacks like Joe Burrow getting all this praise and getting all this sympathy, like, oh, his offensive line is so bad. They are bad. But we can't blame the whole offensive line for every single sack that Joe Burrow takes. Because I would say that maybe a good 60% of them are probably their fault, and another 40% are his. And that percentage might be generous.
Yeah, the data will actually suggest that that's flipped, and it's probably more so maybe 75% him and 25% them.
And that's not a shock. That's not a shock to me. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe be more generous. But yeah, I mean, if data shows it, then yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
he's just struggling, man. He's struggling behind a bad offensive line, but he's also struggling with holding the football. It's just not a good look for Joe. And just again, I mean, what can you say? They're inept offensively when he holds the ball too long and when they can't protect him. Joe Mixon struggled on the ground. I thought that was going to be the bright spot for their team, was Joe Mixon on the ground. I thought that was probably what was going to be a key factor in them winning the game. That and the fact that the Dallas Cowboys had Cooper Rush at quarterback, and neither one of those things determined the game in the Bengals' favor. Higgins and Ja'Marr, I thought, played fine. I mean, Ja'Marr had 9 targets. He caught 5 of them. It's kind of a quiet day for Ja'Marr Chase, but you look at what the offense is, and I think teams are kind of figuring out how to attack that offense. And kind of like we talked about last week, they're in a bad place right now. I don't really know who they play next. Let me see. They play the Jets, so a good bounce back opportunity for him. But on the road against the Jets, I mean, Robert Saleh, if anybody is going to understand how to attack that offense, Robert Saleh is probably a good bet.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Bengals fan, you gotta go back and really cuss out John Gruden for running that Tampa too,
Yeah.
because I mean, teams are imploring that, and they are, doing it in a couple different ways. I saw a play where, the slot defender goes back into a deep half, and they're really just mixing it up, mixing that look up, send
Mm-hmm.
some pressure here and there, and really confusing the Bengals and really forcing Joe Burrow to hit the ball in the middle of the field in tight coverage. And as we all know, he has, below average arm strength in the National Football League. He doesn't want to attack the middle of the field. He wants to attack outside the numbers on, comebacks, hitches, one-on-ones to his receivers, little slants. He wants to live there, but when you force him to really hit the middle of the field and put a really like a bubble from inside the numbers on both sides, he's not going to be too successful. And like I've preached this last year, I was called a hater. I was called all this and all that. Tampa 2 is the defense for them. You make him throw in the middle field tight, he will not be successful. He'll hold the ball, he'll take sacks, and it's coming to fruition. So I'm enjoying my victory lap.
Yep.
Joe Burrow I liked him in college. Oh, sorry, very bad voice crack there.
It's all right.
I mean, I enjoyed him in college, but all of the praise that he got last year, and I just don't think he's a very, very talented quarterback. To compare him to the Josh Allen's, Mahomes of the world, it was super disrespectful. And obviously we're seeing now that it's coming to fruition, and
It's
hopefully
a lot of
that
adulation for a quarterback that was pretty. He was above average last year in terms of his statistical play and his output. But when you look at Jamar Chase and look at what he did after the catch, when you look at the contested catches his receivers had to make, it really kind of almost puts into perspective what kind of quarterback he is. And it kind of makes you question, not question necessarily, but you have to look at the numbers and look beyond them to see kind of what kind of quarterback he is. Not the flashy, jacket and the fucking chain and the cigarette or the cigar he smoked at the national championship and the glasses and shit. Like, yeah, he wants to look fucking cool. He wants to be Joe Cool, Joe Burr, whatever the fuck, right? But when you really think about it and you think about what kind of quarterback he is, it's not that he's a bad quarterback necessarily, but when you're throwing Hall of Fame adulation at him after last season, when you're saying this is not his last Super Bowl that he's going to go to, that he is going to be at multiple Super Bowls with the Bengals, you really just need to kind of pump the brakes because you don't know what you have. That's a second-year quarterback that made the Super Bowl based off of a team that just got really, really scalding hot that could not be stopped for a month, right? Or for 2 months.
Yep.
It's not like he's done it consistently over the course of 5 years and just now he's getting his due, right? This is a brand new, fresh-faced quarterback in the league. You give these, and we shit on defensive coaches a lot, but you give these defensive coaches time to figure something out, they're going to figure this shit out. And you're going to have to make adjustments and change the way you play and improve and evolve. And Joe Burrow is going to have to do that. He's going to have to evolve as a quarterback and evolve as a player. He's going to have to stop holding the ball for so long. He's going to have to be able to throw and hit consistent passes across the middle of the field where he's uncomfortable. And, if he can't do that, then he's going to be Andy Dalton. And he's obviously a little bit more talented than Andy Dalton, but the gist is there. It's just a Bengals quarterback, right? It really just feels like he has to find another gear. He has to hit another gear. He has to improve. And because right now, as a third-year quarterback, you expect a third-year quarterback to be making strides and improving. And what has he gotten better at from last year? Because I can't see anything.
Yeah, and especially and Zach Taylor, I'm not sure, I don't want to call for his head right now, but I'm just looking forward. I don't know how much longer that he's going to have because a lot of people aren't going to blame Joe Burrow. They're going to find a scapegoat and go blame Zach Taylor. And obviously we've seen, quarterbacks now not have the biggest arm and be able to be pretty successful, the Drew Brees of the world. Even like Phillip Rivers, he didn't have pretty big arms. But you have to really scheme him to hit throws that he needs to hit. And I don't think Zach Taylor will be able to do that. So it is a really interesting give and take. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
and like I said last year, I mean, Jamar Chase carried that team to the Super Bowl. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, of course.
He was ridiculous. He caught every jump ball, every goal line fade, the slants that he broke to the house. I mean, he was the reason they made the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and obviously we're seeing
and I
them.
thought their defense, toward the tail end of last year, played really well. Like
Yeah,
their defense played pretty well at the tail end of last year, and their defense this year has been okay. They've played two offenses that are not very good. It'll be interesting to see them play a good offense in 2 weeks when they play Miami on Thursday night. God, here I go calling them a good offense. I need to check myself. And a more explosive offense than they've seen so far. Let's call it that.
that is a good offense.
Okay. Well, it is, but again, I'm trying to temper expectations here. So, again, like we said, I mean, I think, like you said, Zach Taylor, it is a question of whether it's run its course. And I think, it's hard to say that after you go to a Super Bowl and you win one. I think maybe they give him a year to figure it out. And I think maybe midway through next year, if they're still struggling, then he goes. I would not hesitate to pull the plug on it because, again, these defensive coordinators and these defensive coaches, they figure you out eventually, right? And maybe Zach Taylor's just been figured out. Maybe his offensive scheme has been figured out. Maybe they figured Burrow out. Maybe they just need a fresh set of eyes in the offense. And again, I'm not one to necessarily call for coaches' heads right away, except for the one in Denver. But this just feels to me like it can only go one way, and it doesn't seem like it's going to go well. It feels like with who they've acquired, Cleveland or Baltimore is going to run this division for the next 10 years, whereas everybody thought for sure it was the Bengals last year. And we're seeing this year that staying on top and being on top are completely different things. You can be on top, but it is very, very hard to keep that level of, and especially when it's momentum based, because their ascendancy last year was all momentum based toward the tail end of last year. So it's tough to keep that, and I think that they're coming back down to reality a little bit. And again, maybe next week against the Jets, they light the Jets up and score 40, and we're singing a different song. But right now, it is a concern. And
Yeah.
we'll just have to see how that goes for them.
I mean, when you have a vertical passing offense and teams are, they're putting safeties over top and not allowing you to do that, it's just, and your quarterback, doesn't have, Josh Allen arm
right.
to go to boot. It's gonna be tough,
Yeah.
And and we're really gonna see how good of a coach Zach Taylor is going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it is fitting that we spent the most time, or a good bit of time, talking about this team because it is one of the most interesting dynamics in the league right now is how this team is performing and where they were last year. Dallas Cowboys. I asked you in the middle of the game, do we owe a certain coach an apology? And I don't think that we do.
No,
I don't think we do. I think that Dan Quinn did a hell of a job. Calling a great game on defense. I think that Kellen Moore had a solid game plan going in to get his running backs the ball a lot and limit Cooper Rush as much as he could. Not to say that they didn't let Cooper Rush, rip that shit every now and then, because he definitely did. And Cooper Rush, to his credit, you see a lot of backup quarterbacks in the league go very timid. Even last season, Cooper Rush let that shit rip. He is not afraid to throw downfield. He's not afraid to make mistakes. And that's what you kind of want in your backup quarterback. You want a guy that's just going to go out there and say, fuck it. This is my shot. I'm going to play. I'm going to give it all I got. I probably, you probably have a handful of starts in your whole career as a backup quarterback. So good on him. And I thought that they were good value for the win. And even though the Bengals kind of made a push for it late, I thought that they deserved the win. I thought that their defense played really well. I'm trying to find Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a problem, man. He's a real problem. He is a menace, and they have stopped playing him off the ball, which means that he is nearly 100% of the time rushing the passer, and that is frightening, especially against a bad offensive line.
Yeah, I mean he's unbelievable. He can rush the passer, and then on rundowns, they'll mix him in sometimes and play off the ball. But like you said, I mean he's mostly edge and 2 sacks, 5 quarterback hits. I mean pressures every week.
Yeah.
I mean, is this guy? He hasn't been considered as the top defensive player in the league right now. I mean he's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's definitely on the. I mean, he's definitely on the short list. I mean, there's a handful of players right now that are playing out of their mind. I think obviously Minkah Fitzpatrick's blinder from week 1 kind of has him still in that stratosphere. He got another pick last week, but we've seen inconsistent play from Minkah throughout his career. We haven't seen inconsistent play from Micah. Micah has been as well or as good as advertised, and then some. So it's again going to be interesting to see what teams start doing with him, man, because you got DeMarcus Lawrence on the other side. It's not like you can just spend all your time focusing on Micah, because if you do, DeMarcus Lawrence is going to eat your ass alive. So it really does have the hallmark of a really, really nice defense. So I'm interested to see how they progress this year. I think their defenses may even be good enough to keep them in some games they probably should lose, such as next week against the Giants. I think.
And I think we would be remiss if we did not, give a shout out to Trayvon Diggs. He had
Yeah.
an absolutely beautiful day. I mean, I think he guarded Mick Chase for maybe 6 passing snaps and gave up 1 or 2 catches. He had a great day.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's changed his game a lot. I think he's again. We talk about second and third year players improving and where do they get better and how do they change as a player, how do they develop. I think he's developing as a player. I think he's listening to criticism. I think he's listening to suggestions on how he can improve. Now that means that his interception numbers this season are probably not going to be where they were last year. It's never sustainable anyway to get near double digit. Did he get double digits last year? I can't even remember. I think he may have had like 11, but it's not sustainable, that type of play, because you give up so many yards going for interception. So his thing last year was completely sacrificing everything to get interceptions, whereas this year it definitely feels a lot more controlled. It feels like he's actually playing cornerback, and again, this is like his 3rd or 4th year playing corner. So it is encouraging to see him taking another step as a defender and not just an interception merchant, right place, right time kind of guy. So it's nice to see him get some credit, because I have seen that kind of floating around Twitter. And that's great, man. It really is. So we're going to move to another big comeback. I mean, if you want to call it that, because the Seahawks were losing this game in the 4th quarter. And they managed to bring it back. But the real question is, did they bring it back because they were the better team, or did they bring it back because the Texans were just inept on offense? And I think it's probably the latter. I think the Texans just weren't very good offensively, and that's why they won. That's why Houston lost the game, is because their offense just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Much to be expected, going up against a pretty good defense, and obviously the Texans are pretty inept on the offensive end. And, I saw a lot of, Davis Mills praise kind of after last season and maybe even a little after week 1. And I'm not really hearing the same amount of Davis Mills is kind of bad discourse right now. Yeah. He played an absolutely terrible game.
He played a stinker.
It's not like
a stinker.
Yeah, it's not like guys weren't open. He missed guys open, and Brandon Cooks had a pretty good job. I'll be remiss if I didn't mention that. But I mean, my goodness, he's just missing out routes left and right, making bad decisions. I don't think he's a very good quarterback.
I don't think so.
Maybe he just had a bad week, but
he's not. He's not good. And the thing is, like last year, his numbers were inflated because they weren't in very close games, and he was throwing the ball a lot. And I had to sit through a whole offseason of the same graphic being posted every 2 weeks by CBS Sports headquarters of Davis Mills and Tua stats put side by side, and which one's really the better quarterback, which one's a top 5 pick, and which one's not, like all that bullshit. And it's like, man, it's cool. Davis Mills had a nice little season last year, but it doesn't mean that he's a good quarterback, and it doesn't mean that Houston doesn't need one this year, because they certainly do. And that draw, unfortunately, that tie that they have might end up costing them a quarterback potentially, in Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, whichever they prefer. But yeah, I mean they're just not good offensively at all. I thought Dameon Pierce, because I took his under, of course, to Sunday. He had a great game. He played a lot more snaps. He barely touched the field last week, and this week he was much more involved. Rex Burkhead had 0 carries. Who would have saw that coming? Not me. So interesting offensive game plan, but like we said, Davis Mills is just not very good, and he's a nice story because you got him so late, and you got him like just kind of as a flyer. You took a flyer on the guy, and he ended up working out. But dude, he's not good, and they're not good on offense. Now their defense, however, I think is a little bit underappreciated and disrespected just slightly. They don't really have any star players over there. But I mean, they for the past 2 weeks against what people would assume to be pretty decent offenses, they've played well. So credit to them. I mean, Lovie Smith's got the defense playing well, playing hard. But yeah, offensively they're just not good enough. And going over to another offense that's not very good is Denver. Yeah, if Nathaniel Hackett makes it through this season, somebody needs to
He just
somebody.
seems like the guy that's just he gets a promotion in his job because he kind of knows somebody, and once he gets there, he's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm in over my head, and
yeah.
it's just he's just completely in over his head.
He
And at
feels
least
it.
to start the season, and maybe he'll get better. But I mean, my goodness, it's painful to watch that he is stealing millions of dollars from an organization, and he's completely inept.
Well,
It's a
not
pain.
only is he stealing a millions of dollars, his quarterback is also stealing millions of dollars. So at least they've got that in common. He and Nathaniel, he and Russell Wilson, maybe they can bond over that because they're both just stealing a living at this point. I'll say this about Nathaniel Hackett, and because I think it genuinely could help. I don't know who, if he has an assistant head coach, if he has somebody with head coaching experience on the staff that is in kind of a more, maybe, I hate to say a mentor role, but that's kind of what he needs almost. It feels like he's just a little lost, and it feels like he could use, and we've seen different teams employ kind of an assistant head coach that's maybe a little bit more experienced than the head coach even. Uh, I think that might be a route that he could utilize. I just think he's got too much on his plate, and I think you're focused on all these different aspects of the game. You're focused on clock management. You're now focused on where are we at on the field? What is our time of possession? How's the defense do? Like you've got so many hats that you have to wear as a head coach, right? Uh, it feels like it's just too much for him, and he's not getting plays in time, or Russell Wilson is not making the right checks at the line, changing the plays too much. I don't know, but it doesn't feel. It just doesn't feel right. And so, to me, you either have to let him ride this out and hope he improves. I still think bringing in an experienced guy as maybe just an assistant or like whatever to just kind of maybe help him out. Like shit, it just feels like he's got too much on his plate, man. It feels like he's like I know how to handle the offense. I don't know how to handle anything else. And it almost feels a little bit reminiscent of Freddie Kitchens as well, because it's kind of a similar thing to me. Whereas Freddie Kitchens was never necessarily a great offensive coach. I mean, I think he's okay, but he was never really a head coach, or never should have been. But it feels like it's kind of similar where Freddie Kitchens made some dumbass mistakes. Now his mistakes were being too aggressive instead of not aggressive enough, but it feels similar to me. It almost feels in the same vein, and people are going to think that's mad disrespectful to Nathaniel Hackett, but I don't give a shit. Nathaniel Hackett deserves to be disrespected. They took a delay game on the 1 yard line on 4th and inches to kick a field goal from the inch line against the Houston Texans, who are supposed to be terrible. And Javonte Williams, they not only that, I want to say that there were 4 consecutive plays that they had at the 1 yard line, and they threw it 4 straight times. Like it just doesn't make any sense, man. And I'm all for throwing the ball, but shit, you got Javonte Williams back there who's having a good game on the ground. Just give him the fucking ball like once or twice and just see if he scores. Like I just there's just a lot of things that don't make sense. The Andrew Beck quarterback sneak as well. I mean, we forgot about that one. That was just terrible. Like there's a lot of shit that just, or was it end around? I can't remember. It was either end around or sneak, but it was something ridiculous. They're in a bad place. I I hesitate to say that they have a winning record at the end of the season. By what we've seen so far, I think they can definitely turn it around. They've got enough talent, offensively and defensively. But right now, man, they're in a really really bad spot, and it doesn't look to be getting better anytime soon. At least not right now.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some data earlier that they're actually one of like the 4 best teams in driving the football between the 20-yard lines. So that means
Yeah,
they're getting the ball down there, and obviously their red zone and goal to go offense is
it's horrible.
absolutely
It's horrible,
it,
and and they and
it's
they they take so long to run every play. Like they had their fans chant, and people said that the fans were chanting the play clock down,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
because of delay of games. I would have done it as like just a fuck you to Nathaniel Hackett for literally waiting till the very last second to snap the ball every single play that we have possession. It is horrendous. I can't believe that is something that's happening in the NFL in 2022. It's horrible.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't believe that's the thing either.
It's
I
horrible.
mean, it's 'cause I don't think it's really much more to talk about. I mean, this team
No, there's
is
not. No.
mismanaged. Russell Wilson isn't really playing all that well.
No.
Shout out to Cortland Sutton. I mean, he's doing his thing.
Yeah.
He's
He's
trying to
trying.
fight through this
He's trying.
this mess right here. And like you said, maybe they will get better. Maybe he will learn. But for the time being, he's in over his head.
Right now, I think so. Yeah. They play the Niners, Raiders, Colts, and Chargers. That is not a fun stretch.
Yeah.
They could lose all 4 of those games. They could beat. I mean, they very easily beat three of those teams. In my opinion, I don't think they beat the Chargers. They could easily beat the other 3, but they could also easily lose to the other 3. So I guess it just depends on what side of the bed Russell Wilson wakes up on. Because he I mean, it all falls on him at the end of the day. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, he obviously isn't executing the offense very well. I don't know if it's just him being uncomfortable with the offensive scheme or setup or whatever, but they've got issues there. And I guess we're going to go to 2 teams that also have issues, and we have been talking for like an hour and 45 minutes, and this was supposed to be a shorter podcast than last week, and it has not been. So our apologies, but apparently we just have a lot of shit to say.
Sure.
Man,
I'm sure there's someone out there that appreciates this. So
there has to be just so many people that think the same way, like because it really is like, and I hate to say this, but this is common sense football that we're talking here. It's not like we're being super analytical or super data driven. Like we don't necessarily have data pulled up right in front of our face that we're looking at and saying, oh well, if they just run the ball 80% of the time they get a success. We're just talking common sense ball here, like. But it seems like it's not common sense to anybody but us. We're going Cardinals Raiders. Let me say this because this is a stat, and I just said we're not using a lot of stats, but here's one. I saw it today. I'm going to say that, and I can't remember the exact time, but I'm sure somebody knows. The Raiders, on their last 8 plays of the 4th quarter, ran the ball 0 times. A team that was up 8 points at a certain point in the 4th quarter. You got the ball back with an 8-point lead, and they ran the ball 0 times their last 8 plays. With a running back in Josh Jacobs who did not have a fantastic game, but he definitely made a lot of people miss in the backfield, and he definitely was able to plunge forward and get some yards on almost every carry that I saw. It just feels inexcusable.
Yeah, that's very poor clock management, and you don't really expect to see that from Josh McDaniel.
You don't,
obviously,
yeah.
we talk about these coaching trees, and as you alluded to, as we were watching on Sunday, maybe we should go away with that just a bit.
Coaching trees have to die out, man. The coaching trees they're so chalked. Every coach that has a coaching tree, it just seems like the seedlings that fall out of that tree get worse and worse. Like, and then you just start planting shittier trees. You know what I mean? Like, because eventually we'll have the Nathaniel Hackett tree, and that's just going to be a big steaming pile of shit. And like you just can't do this. Where every coach that works with Bill Belichick is all of a sudden a head coach. It hasn't. I don't even think it's worked for anybody. You can say Vrabel, but like I don't even count him because I don't think he's a good coach. I think he's okay. I think he's an okay coach. I think he's maybe a good motivator, a good like team leader guy, rah guy. But that's really it. And I mean, again, Josh McDaniels, man, he fell flat on his face when he went to Denver. 13 years ago? He's fallen flat on his face again. Like he is falling flat on his face again. And it's hard to watch.
To blow that game like they did, not just say the second half offense was just putrid.
Bad.
I don't understand how Devontae Adams, he gets 7 targets, but how in the world does he get 2 catches for 12 yards? It just
one
doesn't
of his
make
catches
any...
was like the very first touchdown they scored in the first quarter.
Yeah, exactly.
So he touched the ball 1 time after the first quarter, basically.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And obviously you said the
sweep.
And just get screens. Grant Bay they gave the ball in a multitude of ways.
Line him up in the fucking Wildcat.
Yeah,
give him a touch.
Yeah.
Amir
let him feel
Abdullah
like he's in the game.
Amir Abdullah had 1 less touch than him. Amir Abdullah hasn't been relevant in 5 years. Like, give him a fucking touch.
Yeah. he hasn't been in the league 5 years. He came back and he has dreads now. That's how I knew it's wow.
It has been. I mean, I don't know, man. The Raiders. What can you really say about them? I thought their defense played fine. They just fucking got tired because they were out there the whole second half. I mean, their offense
Yeah,
couldn't move the
exactly.
ball. I mean, you can say what you want, but credit the Raiders defense in overtime too because they got the stop they needed. They stepped up big when they needed to. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's hard to blame that defense because they were out there a lot. And when Arizona is running plays, it's not like any other. It's not like Baltimore running plays. You know what I mean? Arizona runs fast. Like
Yeah,
they snap the
that's,
ball quick. So when that defense is out there, you might as well be out there. Like it's almost like being out there when Baltimore running like two plays when they run one because of how much energy you have to exert to get to the line quick, to get to like mental energy you have to exert to make sure you're where you're supposed to be. It's horrible to play defense against a team like that. So I think they did all they could. I mean, and by the end of the game, they were just gassed. They were just done. And apparently, so was Hunter Renfro because he fumbled on not back-to-back plays, but 2 out of 3. And I forgot that in between that, sandwiched in between that, was Derek Carr trying to throw an interception. So it really went
yeah,
Renfro fumble, recovered. Derek Carr tried to throw a pick behind Devontae Adams, incomplete, and then Renfro fumbled again for the game. Uh,
yeah, just
wow,
yeah,
just wow, man. They got
yeah. It's
too
really
much
like you
talent
said,
on that offense to do that.
yep. Yeah, I mean it's really unbelievable. And like you said about the defense, they played outstanding. And you look at
Yeah.
the touchdowns that the Cardinals score. I mean, kind of these miracle plays. Hollywood Brown gets the contested ball that I don't think he's ever catched in his life.
No.
And then Kyler's rolling around for 75,000 seconds, and
Yeah.
finding somebody in the end zone, or for the first touchdown. Then the tie on 2 point conversion, kind of the same thing. They did a very good job trying to bail out Josh McDaniel, but at the end of the day, it just couldn't happen because offensively they couldn't do it, and then obviously the overtime session, Derek Carr checks out of a run, goes to a pass, misses,
And
Devontae
again,
Adams, and
yeah,
yeah, they have the point.
it just turns into one of those things where you're damn near in field goal range already. Just give Jacobs the
Yeah,
ball 3 straight
exactly.
plays and just see what the
Yeah,
fuck he does. Like, I mean,
exactly.
realistically, at least first and second down, you turn around and hand the ball off. And we're proponents of being aggressive, and we enjoy aggressive football here. But I do tend to in big game moments and in moments that win and lose games, I do tend to revert back to okay, just give your running back the ball twice and just see what he does. Then worst case you get what 3rd and 6 if you just run it straight ahead. Like you're gonna get 2 yards because the NFL, your offensive line's gonna move people. Your running back's gonna make somebody miss. He's gonna run through an arm tackle. You realistically should be left with like 3rd and 6, and then at 3rd and 6 you can say okay, well how far away are we from like really being in field goal range? Because they were at the 40
Yeah.
and they didn't
Or
run the
like
ball.
39, I think. But
Yeah,
yeah, you run a couple times, and then you pay Daniel Carlson. You paid him
right.
all this money
Yeah,
to be a pretty elite kicker in this
yeah,
league, and you don't even give him a chance.
yeah. I
It's
mean, and he's a guy that like has game winners just left and right. So
yeah,
it's baffling, man. It's a baffling decision, and it's Josh McDaniels it really falls on. I mean, Derek obviously checked out of a play, but man, I mean, if you're McDaniels, you almost just have to tell Derek, wait, go up to the line and run the ball. Let's just run the ball. We'll see what we get. We got to give Daniel a chance to make the kick. Uh,
yep.
and again, on the flip side of it, I don't really have a lot to say about the Cardinals. I mean, I thought they played a resilient game, which I thought was good to see some fight back from a team that, in my opinion, looked very comatose for the first 6 quarters of action this year. It seems like Kyler Murray they gave him a Mountain Dew Baja Blast and some Doritos at halftime and got him out there and he decided he wanted to play football again instead of COD. So good for him. Um, Man, I
Got to
mean,
get the Kai joke in.
yeah, you got to. You have to. You don't really have a choice. I mean, talking about Kyler, you
Yeah.
have to get a video game joke, and it's just necessary at this point. But I mean, what can you say, man? They were a resilient team. They played hard. They fought back. They won the game. I thought their defense played exquisitely in the second half, even though the Raiders kind of still shit their pants. But I mean, it is what it is. When a team shits their pants, you still have to take advantage of it, and I thought the Cardinals did. So give them credit. Um, Kingsbury lives to fight another day. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like the Kingsbury thing. I just don't really.
No, I mean, even if like on the game-winning 2 point conversion, the Raiders, I think they took a timeout or it was a review or something. It was a
Yeah,
review to make sure was it AJ Green caught the touchdown.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and then they come out for the 2 point conversion and they get a delay of game. Like, how does that even
Right.
happen? Like that doesn't make any
Well, I
sense.
joked with you and said they just wanted to back it up. Just give Kyler
Yeah.
some more room to run around back there. Which I mean, who knows, man? it's all just a bit of a shit show, especially with Arizona. I mean, I just don't believe in that team. I just don't have any belief in them
No,
to
yeah,
be very good, and I
not
think
at all.
they're gonna have a really bad season. It's just kind of started, luckily 1-1. Um, moving on to Green Bay and Chicago. Uh, Man, I mean, I don't really know how much there's to say about this game. We can talk about the Packers side of it. I thought that the Bears, first quarter, I thought they played fine. Second quarter, game got away from them, and that was it. That was the game. The game was over. So, Dave Montgomery had 122 yards on the ground, which is pretty impressive. Pretty good day for him. Um, I wonder if it shows other teams that Green Bay may be a little vulnerable on the ground in the run game, or if it was just kind of like, we don't care, we're up 24. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like was it one of those things where it's like, we're up by 20, we don't really give a shit, run the ball if you want, or was it
Yeah,
something that may be a concern for Green Bay? What is
I
certainly a
saw.
concern. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and I saw like late in the game, kind of when they were hitting those
Yeah,
runs. The Green Bay, they were in like dime
they
and
were out
fucking
of it. Yeah,
dollar
for a
and
lot
like
of
a
it.
penny eight type defense. So like they were basically saying, yeah, if you want to hand the ball off and kill the
just
clock,
just kill
go
the
ahead.
game off. That's fine. That's what Green Bay wanted to kill the game off in the third quarter anyway. So they were both trying to kill the game off and get it done as quick as possible. That's what we expected anyway. Justin Fields, man. I mean, he's kind of a disaster. I mean, he almost falls in a similar tree to Burrow, where he just holds the ball for a while, and
Yep.
his pocket presence isn't very good. He doesn't really move a lot in the pocket for a guy that's supposed to be a mobile quarterback. He doesn't really get loose in the pocket at all. It just feels very like forced. Like somebody's got a gun to his head, making him play quarterback. Like it's just forced. It doesn't feel natural for him, and it's just one of those things that I guess maybe comes with time, or maybe comes with some confidence in the offense. But I mean, you bring in two new coaches to hopefully get the most out of Fields, and through two games, obviously the first game is kind of a wash, but I mean this game here, 7 for 11. I mean, they threw the ball 11 times. That's not necessarily a coach that's confident in his first round quarterback to throw it 11 times.
Yeah, someone that wasn't high on Justin Fields at all. Obviously, you cited him holding on to the ball a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have his arm strength. Just doesn't, like you said, he doesn't feel like he should be playing the quarterback position because he holds onto the ball. He just steps into sacks. He's pretty inaccurate.
Well,
Yeah, there's a play
I just
in the
fail to
first
see. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
in the play in the first quarter where he steps past the line of scrimmage 2 yards and then throws a pass, and we're all just like, how does that even happen? It's just, you're right. It does feel like there's a gun to his head, and they're saying, "Hey, man, can you play quarterback for us just
Have to
for
play
like the
quarterback.
next couple years
Yeah.
while we try to, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. Obviously, there's no trust in him. He's
No.
thrown the ball 28 times in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I don't know.
It's scary, man. It's scary to think about. But like my thing is watching him, and I thought the same thing watching him at Ohio State at certain points is what is his like. What are the attributes that people really like about him? Like, what makes him stand out amongst other quarterback prospects? Because the fact that he can run doesn't really make you stand out anymore. Like him being a mobile threat doesn't really make you stand out from the crowd of quarterbacks, because it seems like every quarterback can run. Like Desmond Ritter was in the draft this year; he can run just fine. Like I don't really understand what sets him apart. And I didn't at Ohio State either. I know he went to a blue blood school. He had a lot of great players around him. I just don't see the vision with him, and I don't think Matt Eberflus,
First.
whatever his name is, he doesn't. I don't think he sees it either. I really just wonder what they're gonna do with him. And again, maybe next week they go out against the, I don't know. They go out against the Texans. Perfect. They go out against the Texans, and they have the Giants after that. Texans and Giants. Maybe they go out and they win both of those games, and Justin Fields plays really well. But man, I don't have any confidence that that's going to happen. It doesn't look like the Bears have any confidence that's going to happen. So it feels like they're almost just biding their time, hoping that they suck this year. I just don't. I don't know. Weird situation in Chicago. Really weird. And again, it's a game script where he should be throwing the ball 30 times, minimum, minimum 30 times, and they just seem like they couldn't wait for the game to be over. They lost by 17. It's not like they lost by like fucking 40. They lost by 17 points. That's 3 scores. You were down by what were they down? 24-7. So they were down by 17 at halftime. It's not like they were down by 40 points.
Yeah, and they cut it to 24-10 in the third quarter.
Right. It's bizarre. Yeah. It's really bizarre.
You're right. I mean, it is. Actually, just thinking about it, man, you're now 14 in this league. 2 touchdowns can be made up in.
Oh my God! You
scored
2 touchdowns instantly.
Yeah,
the Jets scored 2 touchdowns in a minute and a half.
Exactly, and to throw the ball 11 whole times, I don't know, man.
It just makes you wonder about what they're thinking with him and what the thought process is, because obviously if you even think your quarterback is worth a shit, then you throw it like even Brian Flores hated Tua's fucking guts, but we threw it 30 times when we were losing. Like if we're losing the game, Tua's throwing 30 times at least. And that's fine. Like. And Brian Flores couldn't wait for Tua to fucking go to the Texans in a trade for massage guy. You know what I mean? So,
the guy who shall not be named.
Guy who enjoys massages. So Green Bay might be the most boring team in the NFL to watch. They are so fucking boring. I wanted to shut this game off at halftime. I was so bored of watching Green Bay play football. Aaron Rodgers is fine. He played fine today. We assumed last week that he would play fine coming into this game against the Bears. I'm pretty sure we said that in the podcast last week. Like, he's probably going to do fine. But fuck if he's not so boring. I feel like we cuss a lot more at the end because I'm just getting tired. But, dude, honestly, like, Aaron Rodgers, the whole offense was just boring. Like, it just felt like instead of going out there and having fun playing football, we're going to go out there and make sure that we end the game as soon as we can. Like, it's just boring football to watch. They ran the ball 38 times. Like, goodness gracious. So boring.
Yeah. It's they had a lot of the obviously the Hackett and Florida very similar. Obviously same staff last year, but I mean it's the getting to the line, snapping the ball at 2 times in both halves where you're counting the play clock down to 1. Aaron Rodgers was just taking a timeout at the last minute, and it wasn't on even the final drive. Like we're midway in the third quarter, and we're chewing clock like we got a dinner date to go to after the game. Immediately after the game, it just in 2022
to go meet his medicine man or something in the fucking hills of Wisconsin somewhere, and fucking like it just doesn't make sense, man. You're right. It's 2022. Like we again. It just doesn't. It just feels gross and dirty.
It is. I mean, and when you're handing the ball to a fullback 18 times while chewing the clock, it's like Jesus Christ.
A second round fullback.
Yeah, I hope nothing but the worst for them. But unfortunately, Mike Evans isn't even playing next week, so they may look into.
No, they're gonna beat the fucking Bucks, and they'll beat the Patriots. They'll beat the Giants. They'll beat the Jets. They're gonna be fucking 5-1, just rolling through the Commanders. They finally get to lose to the Bills. I mean, this team is going to end up winning 10 games this year, and I can tell you they're not going to win on Christmas. They're definitely not winning that game. Well, actually, they've been running right through us, man. Who knows? Our run defense was bad, but they're just not an interesting team at all.
Not at all.
Speaking of not an interesting team, I mean, it might be. Well, yeah, there's a way that we can make this team a lot more interesting, but we'll talk about that in a second. Tennessee Titans are so boring. They are mind-numbingly boring team to watch, again, because all they do is wad up and run Derek, who gets hit behind. I've never understood how you can have 11 people or 10 people blocking for Derek, and he still gets hit behind line of scrimmage every play. Like, the fact that he even has a career that people think is good is a testament to how good of a player he actually is, because he gets hit the backfield every single snap.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. How many times can you bang your head against the wall? What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result? I mean, Lord have mercy. At some point, Todd Downing, he's going to be the first one to go. And if they continue to lose, Vrabel will be gone, and he'll be the next coach of the New England Patriots, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's exactly where he's going. If for any reason Tennessee does get rid of him, which I don't think they will, because I think they'll win enough games to keep him. I mean, honestly, after tonight, I don't care what Vrabel's done for your team, for your organization. After tonight, man, heads have to roll. You can't lose to an AFC rival if you're thinking you're going to be competitive in the AFC. You can't lose to an AFC rival 41-7. I don't care. I don't care if the game got away from you. I don't care what happened. You can't do that. That is Like it's unbelievable to lose a game like that. And again, I saw Derrick Henry tonight take a handoff and ran straight into the back of his lineman. It's like he's given up because he knows, like, I just, like, I'm going to run straight. I'm not going to get any yards, and then I'm going to get hit in the backfield. Somebody's going to grab my legs. Like, I'm going to try to stiff arm somebody. I'm not going to hit him because everybody knows I stiff arm a lot. But, like, dude, watching them is so depressing. And I used to enjoy watching Derrick, and now watching him just makes me sad because I just see, like, a shell of a running back who's probably his best years are behind him, and also the offense they run just does not do anything to help him at all. And like, but oh man, like Tannehill's so bad too. It's just, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, you're right. It is bad, and they are in danger of handing that division to the Jacksonville Jaguars
so.
in Doug Peterson's first season as head coach.
I hope so. God, I hope so. Treylon Burks was a bright spot tonight. I thought he looked good when he got the ball.
Yeah, he's very talented.
Yeah, he's a very talented player, and people kind of poo-pooed him a little bit in preseason and training camp, and Titans fans and Titans beat writers were saying he was having a bad camp. Look, it's we're talking about practice. You know what I mean? Like, who gives a shit, right? Like, yeah, training camp, he drops some balls or he looks bad. Like, so did Ja'Marr Chase. It doesn't matter. You give the kid the ball. He's electric with the ball in his hand. He's a great player in terms of just out of that A.J. Brown mold. It's exactly, you just basically replaced him like for like. I mean, A.J. Brown's obviously better right now, but, I mean, Treylon Burks can grow into it, you know. But when you get 6 targets and you throw the ball 20 times in a game, you get beat by 30. Man, it's just, again, heads need to roll. I don't know who's going to go, but somebody's got to. One way that we can make this seem a lot more fun is to play Malik Willis because he looked absolutely horrible tonight.
But it was we were watching together, but it was very entertaining.
Oh, it was fun. It was hilarious. It was great.
Yeah, watching him in a clean pocket, just flee it immediately and just throw whatever he wanted downfield. I mean, it was very entertaining.
He's 24 years old. He's the same age as Tua. He's just 2. He's 23. He's out there. He is out there just fleeing a clean pocket. First clean pocket of the night, and he got out of that pocket so fast. Oh my God! All right, so the Bills. I mean, we're not going to really sit here and talk about the Bills. The Bills are the Bills, man. You know what they are. You know how good they are. You know the talent. You know who they play. You know who they have. I mean, they didn't even have Gabe Davis tonight, and it's just like who?
Exactly. It's just roll in, dominate, get out of there.
Roll in, throw to Stephon Diggs 14 times, have him just go fucking ballistic, and just leave. You know what I mean? Just like you show up, you beat ass, and then you leave, and that's it. Exactly. And 24 points in the third quarter. I mean, Jesus Christ, any resemblance of a football game that was going on just ended in that third quarter. I took the Titans on an alt spread, by the way. It's plus 17.5. I don't know that I'll ever recover mentally from that. Because watching an NFL team get their just doors blown off in like real time, watching that happen, it does something to you. Like you watch that and it changes you as a person, I think. Because 17.5, I thought, man, that's safe as shit. Titans are going to run the ball. It's going to be a close game, tight, like till the fourth quarter. Man, I mean that's a crazy scoreline. And credit to the Bills, man. They were good. I mean their defense played fine. I mean, I think you could send a college defense out there against the Titans and you just stick 11 in the box, make Tannehill beat you, and you got a shot. So
exactly.
Last game, and we are 2 hours and 7 minutes in, so it's not a short one, but it is what it is. We'll call it a movie, and maybe people will pay money to see it. Put a disclaimer at the beginning. Make sure you get your popcorn ready and TO clip. Philadelphia Eagles and Minnesota Vikings. Let's talk about the Eagles first because I think the Eagles are the more interesting team tonight. The Eagles actually look like a competent, solid NFL football team, which is something they kind of looked like last year in spurts, but I don't think they look like it the whole year. This is now basically 2 games where I think they've looked very, very capable of not only making the playoffs but winning a playoff game, whereas last year they did not.
Yeah, I mean, I was very impressed with the offense. Obviously, we're accustomed to watching them, run the play action, run the RPO stuff, get Jalen outside the pocket. But they were very comfortable with him dropping back, no play action in a standard passing set, and he looked tremendous tonight. I mean, I took his under in passing yards. Boy, was that a mistake by halftime. He made me maybe bite that.
Yep.
But man, I mean, he looked great. I mean, he had deep balls. He was hitting intermediate stuff. Him and the receivers were on the same page and against zone. Man, it didn't matter. They looked elite tonight against the Vikings defense. Now, albeit week one Packers. There's some wide receiver issues, but they absolutely dominated the Packers last
They
week. Put a
did.
bunch of pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and for Philly to come out tonight and just wipe the floor with Minnesota was completely impressive. And defensively, to take away Justin Jefferson, Darius Slay. I mean, what
Oh
a
my
game! That
God.
might be
Yeah.
one of the better defensive back performances that we see. All year. I mean,
I completely
that
agree.
was super impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree about everything you said. I think again, like I said, the Eagles are really impressive tonight. They played a really good football game. Jalen Hurts has been maybe overpraised by people who watch football just for fantasy points, and then maybe a little bit undervalued by people who don't. So I think he kind of fits right there in the middle, where people say like, "Oh my God, he's so good," but that's only because they play DFS or they play fantasy football season long, and they see like, "Oh, he put up 30 points tonight. He went crazy," and I think maybe he gets a little bit too much kind of stick from people who maybe are more football oriented, like just diehard football guys, right? Like, oh, he can't hit the 15-yard out. I think he's somewhere in the middle. But I think tonight he definitely had a probably his I would say his probably best game as an NFL quarterback, just in terms of what he was able to do to, like you said, a Minnesota defense that dominated the Packers last week. Um, I think Minnesota secondary has a lot of problems. I think that it didn't show its head. It didn't rear its ugly head last week against the Packers because the Packers offense is just so just stagnant. But today it was pretty apparent. And I will say, I mean, second half, I don't know if the Eagles took their foot off the gas or Minnesota played a little bit better defensively, but second half they definitely scoreless second half is kind of pretty rare. I feel like in the NFL, but. Devontae Smith got involved this week. I kind of expected that would probably be the case. I was a little surprised at how limited AJ Brown's usage was. I thought I could definitely see another 12 target game from him, and just continuing to get Devontae involved while also getting AJ Brown involved. I mean, he was involved, but it definitely seemed like a lesser role than last week, where they were calling kind of more designed plays to get him the ball in space, and they did a couple times tonight with a couple screens and some quick just hitch routes to get him the ball, but. Overall, like you said, I mean, just a great performance. And defensively, yeah, I mean, that Vikings offense. I mean, say what you want about them, but they have a lot of talent. Kirk Cousins is a very capable quarterback. Dalvin Cook is a fantastic running back, 6 for 17. I mean, that's pretty good against Dalvin Cook. And then, when Adam Thielen is leading the Vikings in yards in 2022, you've done something noteworthy. Because Justin Jefferson, like you said, I mean, he was targeted all night long, and Darius Slay was targeted all night long. And for him to only get 6 for 48 when he could have had 11 for 150 is really, really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles did not respect, any resemblance of a deep passing game from the Vikings. So they were just squatting on kind of those underneath routes, and they were driving and knocking them out. And Darius Slay, he went a little above and beyond that. I mean, the interception at the goal line was just unbelievable.
Unreal.
Didn't fall for the outcut on the little skinny post that just Jefferson just ran the route for him, jumps the pass. I mean, just technically sound. Just like I said, one of the better defensive back games that you're going to see this season.
That's a prime Darius Slay performance. It's rolling back the years a little bit. It is a prime Darius Slay moment, and if he can replicate that throughout the year, man, he's going to be dangerous, and it's going to be really hard for teams in the NFC East to no, not the East. What are they? The NFC South? Am I tripping?
East, yeah, East.
They are the East, right? The Falcons are the South. Yeah, the NFC East. I mean, those receivers. I mean, what receivers? If he can cover Justin Jefferson like this, then Terry McLaurin's not going to give me any trouble, neither CeeDee Lamb. Because all respect to CeeDee Lamb and Terry McLaurin, but they are not Justin Jefferson. And watching Justin Jefferson try to hit him with that route into the end zone, that I would say probably Justin Jefferson over his whole life has probably never been covered like that on a route similar to that one where he gives the head fake outside and cuts in. I mean, he was probably shocked. He probably couldn't believe that shit. Like Darius Slay beat him to the spot. He was probably like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Like, hey, Nobody has ever beaten him to the spot. I'm sure of it, and that was probably the first time he's ever seen something like that. So kudos to Darius Slay, man. What a performance! What a game! And again, Minnesota. It's time to pick up the pieces. You know, I mean, it was a stinker. You guys had a stinker today, but I still like the Vikings offense. I think they're capable. I think that they're capable of giving the Packers a run for the division. I don't hate their schedule. I did not know that they played the Dolphins this year. As a self-proclaimed Dolphin fan, I didn't know that. So, I don't know what that says about me, but Lions is an easily winnable game next week. It's probably going to be a pretty entertaining game, I would say. Saints is winnable in London. Bears is winnable. It doesn't mean they're going to win, but they're winnable games. They've got some definitely winnable games in here, and I could see them taking the division. I could see Green Bay obviously taking the division with their boring style of play. It'll be interesting to see how that division shapes up, I think, as the season progresses. But I mean, not much more can be said. The Eagles played a great game. Minnesota just felt like they didn't show up, and that's it. So that is all the games for this week. We have discussed every single NFL football game, and it only took us 2 hours and 15 minutes to get through them all, with varying degrees of in-depth insight. But that's what you're gonna get here on Going Forth, man. We're here. We're gonna talk about football. We're gonna give you what we got. If we watch 5 minutes of the game, we're gonna dissect the shit out of those 5 minutes. We're gonna tell you we're gonna tell you everything about your team that you need to know in the 5 minutes that we watched your team. Okay, so Panthers fans, it's time to get rid of Matt Rule. Baker Mayfield's not the answer. That was our 5-minute insight for you guys. Hopefully that was enough, because we don't really feel like watching any more than the allotted time for certain games. Any last final thoughts, takeaways from this week? Anything that you're looking forward to? Maybe next week's games. We take a look at next week's games. Anything catch your eye? Anything you want to talk about?
Obviously Bills Dolphins. I mean, that elite offensive game. I think two of the top. I don't want to, like I said, overreact, but I think it's two of the top 5 offenses in the league right now. I mean, that game is shaping up to be one of the better games of next week. See if the Bengals can get back on track as well.
That's an interesting game to me. I'm really interested in Bengals Jets. I mean, probably more interested than anybody else should be. Any neutral fan should be. It's just an interesting game. It really is. And the early games. I mean, there's some stinkers in here. Saints Panthers is a stinker. Ravens Patriots hopefully should be a stinker. Ravens should probably beat them to death. Raiders Titans. I mean, talk about just two teams that expected to have their seasons go very differently, and they're on the bottom of the barrel, man. Thursday night, I don't know if anybody's going to watch this. I mean, we're going to watch it, but I don't know if anybody else is going to.
Go ahead and take that under, man.
We'll have a go ahead and take that under. We'll have a I'm sure like an 8-leg parlay on this game, and we'll let you know how it goes. I don't expect good things, but sometimes living the life of a degenerate, you don't really have a choice. Jaguars, Chargers, I mean,
should be a pretty good game.
It could be. I mean, it's on the road. Jaguars, I don't know, flying all the way across the country, kind of tough. Same with the Falcons. I mean, Falcons Seahawks, that is a great 4:00 game, because if it wasn't at 4:00, there's no fucking shot anybody's watching that. Packers Bucks is a cool game. Rams Cardinals is whatever. Cardinals beat the Rams. Rams are in big trouble, by the way. If the Cardinals actually beat the Rams, they're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Niners Broncos. Sunday night. Just we got nothing else to watch. Might as well watch it.
And Cowboys Giants. Wow, what a Monday night game that is.
I mean, hey man, again, nothing else on. That's what the NFL does, man. There's nothing else on TV. What are you gonna watch? Fucking like Dance with the Stars? Or are you gonna watch NFL?
The Bachelor.
Are you gonna watch The Bachelor? Or are you gonna watch the NFL? Like, we're obviously gonna pick the NFL. I mean, we just are. Oh my God, is it gonna be bad weather? Oh no. Anyway, we'll talk about all that shit later. We'll make our predictions. We'll have another video later this week, making our predictions for the games, talking about some betting props and some spreads and some over-unders that we like. But until then, this has been your 2-hour and nearly 20-minute review, recap, whatever you want to call it, show, podcast of NFL Week 2. So all that being said, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you subscribe, like the video, comment down below, tell us why we're wrong about your team and why you're winning the Super Bowl. And all that being said, you guys have a good one. Don't forget, Going Forth.